The world ended in just 3 days. Wars, monsters, and humanity fell, trapped in his apartment. Kim Jae-hyun discovered a unique power. From solitary to the leader of a new fortress. Every neighbor, every vassal, a new hope. But between trust and fear, as only strength will decide who survives. This is just the beginning. One day, the world suddenly ended. A pandemic, a large-scale infection stunned the world. A war, armed conflicts that took the lives of countless innocents. Finally, the decline of the global economy and a lack of food. Such sinister omens appeared. But what hammered the last nail in humanity's coffin was not humanity itself. The beings that arose to bring the end seemed to have stepped out of games and horror stories. Such beings were known as monsters. What happened next was quite predictable. Just as it appears in literary works, metahumans with special abilities began to emerge. However, there was something different between light novels and reality. The metahumans weren't powerful enough to end the apocalypse. 3 days after the final war, life still existed in a few isolated places. A young man eating chips and drinking soda in his room proved that the world hadn't completely ended. His being alive proved that humanity still existed, but he was alone. The young man, with his glassy-eyed gaze, was the only living being in that 100-square-meter apartment. His mother, father, grandfather, and grandmother were all outside. The young man's father had decided to buy that place, one of the few that remained standing due to the war. It was purchased with a 200 million won loan from a bank, as well as the family's entire savings, another 200 million. The reason he was there, despite not being born in a good location, was because he had to live in the apartment for 2 years before he could enjoy the tax benefits of buying it. Because he was forced to stay in that place, the young man was trapped as the apocalypse unfolded. And to make matters worse, when he looked at his cell phone, he discovered he had no internet signal. He sighed, returning to doing nothing. However, at that moment a loud squawk was heard. Confused, he looked at the window. In the sky, a large bird was flying toward the building. When the bird approached, the young man realized it was a monster, with a mouth as big as the apartment itself and teeth as huge as he was. The young man's home was attacked. The young man put his hands in front of his body, waiting for the strong impact, screaming in fear. But suddenly, the monster stopped in midair. Confused, the young man began to open his eyes again. A notification appeared before him. An object that was not allowed to enter is trying to invade. While that flying monster squawked fiercely, the young man discovered he had received an ability: final reclusion, home isolation. Thanks to this passive skill, no one could enter the house without the governor's permission. The young man sighed, relieved to see the notification. He got up and, walking to the window, faced the reason he had managed to survive until that moment. Because of this ability. Irritably, he put his hand on the doorknob, desperately trying to open the door. Annoyed that he couldn't, he even prepared to kick the door. Even with the kick, it didn't open. This was the 3rd day after the end of the world, and in safety, the young man couldn't leave the apartment. Thanks to the ability that protected him, he was completely imprisoned in the house. With that notification screen in front of his face, the young man sat somberly in a corner. Because of the ability, he couldn't leave the house. Final reclusion made him angry because he couldn't even do anything. The biggest problem he faced was food. The various packages of ramen as well as the cans of soda were running out. The refrigerator also had no electricity anymore, and the young man, who was surviving on the dishes he kept there, would soon no longer be able to count on them. With only a little more food left, he bit his nails in worry. But then, something suddenly appeared. A notification. You have hunted a level 23 Calican. You have gained a large amount of experience. Your skill level has increased. The notifications the young man received shocked him. Aghast, he approached the window. Looking down, he saw the large bird fallen on the street, where several goblins were attacking it, turning it into fried chicken. The young man realized that since the Calican had hit his house, it counted as if he had hunted it. From the first notification, others began to appear. A new skill had been obtained and the loot was being calculated. While focusing on the notifications, the young man was distracted by terrifying screams. The monsters that were eating the bird's meat began to scream crazily, something they had never done before. They put their hands on their heads due to the pain, falling one after another. At that moment, the loot calculation completion notification appeared. You have obtained 2,000,001, which have been deposited into your final reclusion wallet. At the same moment, the living room lamp turned on. The young man looked at the light with a surprised look. The electricity came back all of a sudden? What he didn't know was that the passive ability Home Isolation had evolved to level 3. In addition, he had obtained the passive ability Dignity Preservation. To preserve your dignity, half of your house's functions are restored. Upon discovering this ability, the young man's eyes widened. Great happiness appeared in his eyes as he celebrated joyfully. He quickly ran to the refrigerator. Opening the door, he smiled to see that it was working. When he got to the sink and turned on the tap, he discovered there was running water. He even checked the stove, discovering there was a gas supply. Falling to his knees, he cried with happiness while thanking the heavens. It's working like it used to. Everything has been restored to how it was before the world ended. He hurriedly grabbed his cell phone to check if the internet was working. However, he ended up frustrated. He scratched his head, seeing that he still had no internet, sighing lightly. It was at that moment that something came into his view. In the middle of the trash, he found a flash drive. Since the power had been restored, he turned on the computer. There, he found several photos. There was a photo of when he was a baby being carried in his mother's arms. There was also a photo of when he was a child, coming home from school with his yellow hat. There was a photo of the whole family, him and his parents, as well as a photo of his birthday, already in his teens. Seeing so many family photos, the young man fell silent, lost in thought. He sighed, releasing a weight that was on his chest. Gritting his teeth with determination, he stated, I need to bring my family here no matter what. Getting up and going to the balcony, he swore that he would fulfill this objective. When he got there, he found a notification, the isolation store, where he could buy items. With more than 2,000,001 in his wallet, the young man stared blankly at the item listing option. The protagonist analyzed the function for a bit and only then pressed the store button. The listing function was clear. Would you like to list for the first time? Since he could see the money in the isolation wallet, the young man imagined that the two functions were linked. Going to the balcony, he once again encountered the isolation barrier, which didn't allow him to leave the house, not even through the window. Even with the skill level increasing, he still couldn't leave. However, the protagonist had discovered something. If I hunt monsters, my level will increase and I'll get new abilities. He imagined that if he evolved even further, he would obtain a skill that would allow him to leave the house. The problem was that he didn't know how he could defeat monsters while isolated. Despite the many flying monsters in the city, it was difficult to expect the same situation as before to happen again. But looking down at the fallen bird, he thought of something. Maybe there was a way to defeat the goblins that had been attracted by it. Picking up a water bottle, he returned to the balcony. Extending his arm back, he threw the bottle out the window. Joy appeared in his eyes when he discovered that objects could pass through the barrier. He could throw things out of the house. Having confirmed his doubt, he grabbed a gym dumbbell, intending to use it. Upon returning to the balcony, he heard a hiss that caught his attention. Various goblins were spreading through the street, climbing on structures as they hunted. The goblins also divided the meat of the fallen bird, leaving like an organized society. A somber expression appeared in the protagonist's eyes when he saw the monsters moving away. He quickly prepared for the throw. With the goblins in sight, he threw the dumbbell as far as he could, hoping it would hit. Like a meteor, the dumbbell fell on the already defeated bird, causing great damage. The protagonist tragically saw his attack miss. Looking to the side, he realized that only one dumbbell was left. He wondered what he would do since he had nothing else he could use against the goblins. While thinking, he heard the hissing of the goblins get stronger. They were looking at the apartment. A goblin holding the thrown dumbbell gritted its teeth upon spotting the boy, warning everyone of its kind about the target. Fear took over the protagonist. The goblins hissed in unison, like a war cry. Unexpectedly, they all ran toward the building. Seeing the goblins approach, the protagonist realized that the situation wasn't so bad. With them getting closer, it would be easier to hit them. Suddenly, he thought of something. He quickly opened the store. The item listing option was still there. Upon clicking the listing button, a confirmation notification appeared while he showed the dumbbell. Soon, the scanner seemed to digitize the object in the protagonist's hand. Thus, the notification changed. A classic 3-kilogram non-slip dumbbell has been listed. In the final reclusion store, the dumbbell cost almost 17,001. Aghast, he realized that the store was selling the dumbbell for the same price he had bought it for online. The protagonist then decided to buy 2 dumbbells. When he put them in the cart, he confirmed with a satisfied smile. Immediately, a light came out of the store's holographic window. The dumbbells were digitized on the floor in front of him. Excited, the protagonist celebrated when he saw that it had worked. Once again, he was ready to attack the goblins from one of the highest floors of the building. He immediately threw the first dumbbell. The 3-kilogram weight fell on a goblin's head. Immediately, the notification appeared. You have hunted a level 7 goblin. You have obtained experience points. 3,300 points have been deposited into your wallet. The young man celebrated every small victory he obtained. Meanwhile, the goblins checked the situation of their fallen companion. When they saw that there was nothing more to be done, the leader of the pack got up, roaring. However, the goblin's roar was answered with another dumbbell, which fell heavily on the spot where they were. The protagonist was irritated because this time he had missed. Seeking to level up, he bought 3 more sets of dumbbells. As soon as they were digitized, the protagonist threw one of them over the balcony. This time, he hit the mark, making the goblins around the downed target squeal with rage. For having defeated a level 6 goblin, 2,500 points were added to the wallet. In addition, the skill level had increased, and a new skill was obtained. Upon checking the new skill, he discovered it was called Warehouse, an alternative dimension used to store items. Immediately, he chanted, "Open warehouse." The protagonist brought one of the dumbbells closer to the warehouse window that had opened. The confirmation notification to store appeared, and immediately he confirmed. A light scanned the dumbbell, making it disappear. Thus, the warehouse notification appeared. The 3-kilogram non-slip dumbbell has been stored. An option to summon it again was right below. With a sparkle in his eyes, the protagonist used the option to withdraw the object. Immediately, the 3-kilogram dumbbell materialized in his hand. Being able to summon and store his items anywhere, he smiled with the sweet taste of victory. With a malicious look, he thought of something. On the top floor of that building, a light appeared on the balcony. With the warehouse pointed outward, the protagonist extended his hand, using the item summoning function. He took a deep breath and began to scream, "Summon dumbbell! Summon dumbbell! Summon dumbbell!" Dozens of dumbbells appeared one after another. A rain of dumbbells happened as they were summoned outside the building. The goblins looked up and saw the countless unknown tools fall in their direction. The leader of the pack opened its mouth in surprise, but a dumbbell soon closed it. With the street being washed in red, countless notifications of goblin hunts appeared for the young man who had caused it all. In the end, more than 54,001 were deposited in the isolation wallet. Thus, he excitedly added new items to the store list. The protagonist listed 10 items in the store. First, the 3-kilogram dumbbells. Next, ramen, water, rice, special eggs, milk, seaweed with olive oil, canola oil, and finally, tomato ketchup. He was also able to sell the weights he had used to defeat the goblins to the store, as well as all sorts of food and daily necessities. Doing some quick math, the protagonist noticed something. His isolation wallet skill was at max level, and his balance was already over 2,100,001. However, the stored values started to drop, though almost imperceptibly. This made him worried. Does the dignity preservation skill have a cost? Looking around and seeing how it used electricity, gas, and water, he realized the refrigerator was a big source of one consumption. Gritting his teeth, he cursed the goblins for it. After defeating the goblins by throwing dumbbells, the orcs had fled, abandoning the old house where they lived. Since then, the protagonist could only hunt them occasionally. Annoyed, he wondered if only goblins lived nearby. From the window, he saw that the bird he had defeated a while ago was already reduced to bones. He also hadn't seen any more birds like that lately. Believing he needed to find another hunting method, he sighed. Looking at the sky, he wondered when another calican would appear. That's when his eyes widened. A flying monster was appearing in the city's skies. It was a calican, and it had also noticed the protagonist. Diving fiercely towards the building, it opened its 3 jaws full of sharp teeth. The sudden appearance of the calican shocked the protagonist, who wasn't expecting it anymore. Thanking the heavens, he ran inside the house. He soon returned to the balcony, preparing a makeshift device. He tied a mirror to a clothes hanger and tried to reflect the sunlight onto the giant bird. He succeeded. The light hit the calican's eyes, which squawked violently, opening its mouth towards the boy. Like a meteor, it lunged against the brick house. Excited to see his improvisation work, the protagonist stepped back, letting the bird crash with all its force against the barrier. The calican tried in every way to get in, but the barrier prevented it. With a smile, the protagonist was already imagining dealing with it and leveling up when a twist occurred. The bird stopped its assault and began flapping its wings, creating a violent gust of wind. Forced to retreat, he raised his arms to block the attack and not be thrown back. Suddenly, he saw the monster disappear from view. He ran to the balcony and saw that it had moved up to the floor above, embedding its claws in the wall. Having lured the protagonist out, the monster attacked once more. His expression turned grim at the sudden attack. The next instant, the Calican closed its beaked jaws and tried to pierce the house's barrier without success. Using its pelican-like beak, it insisted on breaking through the defense. Worried, the protagonist bit his lips, wondering if the Calican would manage to get through. Knowing he needed to act, he opened the store. The 10 listed items appeared before him. He had already noticed that the loot calculations only happened if the enemy was defeated nearby. Not all the goblin hunts had paid off. Many carried the bodies of their allies far away, preventing the loot from being calculated. In other words, the loot needed to be collected as close as possible. So he wondered if there was a way to defeat the Calican in one go so it wouldn't escape by flying. While analyzing the items, he remembered the canola oil. Quickly, he bought 10 bottles. The confirmation notification appeared and he accepted. Soon, the 10 bottles were materialized before him. Carrying the oils, he ran to the kitchen. He poured the contents into a large pan. He turned the stove to the maximum heat, and while the oil was heating, he improvised a torch with a broom handle, cloth, and tape. Then he dipped the torch into the oil, soaking it, and opened the store again. Selecting the item listing option, he poured the boiling oil into the field. Immediately, a new item appeared, boiling canola oil. With a lighter in hand, he lit the torch and prepared himself. The Calican was still on the floor above, waiting to attack. With the torch in hand, he approached the balcony and yelled, "Summon canola oil!" The hot oil was summoned onto the monster, covering it in scorching heat. While the Calican screamed in pain, the protagonist threw the torch in its direction. The flames spread, igniting the oil stuck to its feathers. A bird of fire writhed and squawked in agony in the sky. Satisfied, the protagonist smiled. His strategy had worked. Burning in despair, the Calican fell into the parking lot next to the building, in the same place where the previous one had succumbed to the barrier. Gritting his teeth, the protagonist noticed that the monster was still alive, but unable to fly, its screams soon ceased. The notifications appeared. You have successfully defeated a Calican. You have obtained a massive amount of experience points. 2 skills evolved a level, and a new one was unlocked. The nearby loot was calculated. Over 9 million won were deposited into the total reclusion wallet. Shocked by the fortune he received, the protagonist could barely believe it. Then, an unexpected notification appeared. The requirement has been met. The house's territory expansion has begun. Suddenly, the floor trembled. He couldn't even understand what was happening. Soon, he felt as if the world had turned upside down. Everything became dark and he couldn't move. An intense pain hit him, forcing him to double over. Meanwhile, an energy spread throughout the house, reaching the corridors and the entire building, where people could be seen. With darkened eyes, the protagonist seemed to feel and perceive their presence. He then realized that the family with 2 children were his neighbors from the apartment next door. With his hands on his head, the protagonist wondered what was happening. He could see people somehow. As the excruciating pain faded, he managed to emerge from that shadowy state. Still in shock, he received information directly into his mind. The father of that family was named Choi Hyung-jun, and he was in his 30s. Park Hye-won, his wife, was the same age. In addition to them, there were Choi Na-yeon, 6, and Choi Seo-yeon, 3, the couple's 2 daughters. A notification appeared. You have discovered beings who meet the requirements to be taken as citizens. Would you like to grant them citizenship? Confused, the protagonist wondered what would happen if he did. The system answered him. Beings who do not have citizenship are expelled from the house. Are you sure you don't want to grant them citizenship? The protagonist bit his lips, knowing that the family would be exposed to the monsters if he didn't. Therefore, he decided to grant the 4 of them this citizenship. Discovering this new ability called citizenship, he decided to take a look at its information, as well as the others. The first ability he had obtained was Ultimate Eyes. Nothing inside the house could escape his eyes. Confused, he looked for something related to this citizenship. Soon he discovered that, within the home isolation skill, a citizen management feature had been opened. Upon finding the function, he opened it. There he found the names of the 4 people he had given citizenship to, as well as their trust levels, and the current population number, 4 people out of a possible 600. Surprised, he wondered if that wasn't a very large number. Investigating a bit more, he checked on Choi Hyung-jun, the family's father. Choi Hyung-jun's trust was at 24 points. He didn't have any awakened abilities, nor experience or money distribution. In that tab, it was possible to give the man a quest or expel him. The protagonist imagined that the sharing of experience and money was a function where the citizens would share what they obtained with him. Smiling with excitement and malice, the protagonist wondered if this was how he would become stronger. Curious, he clicked on the quest option. The quest was open-ended. He could add a description, a time limit, a reward, and a penalty for failure. Surprised, the protagonist wrote a quest to test how it worked. Hunt a goblin. Time limit, 1 week. Reward, a small amount of experience, no penalty for failure. After writing the quest, he had the option to send it or not. Before sending the quest, however, the protagonist thought he should add a penalty to encourage Choi Hyung-jun to complete it. So he did. Edit penalty for failure, life. With the quest edited, the confirmation prompt to send was shown once more. However, he canceled the quest and did not send it. The protagonist sat on the floor, feeling that if he wanted to, he could cause a lot of harm to his citizens. With such a dominant ability, he wondered what he should do. Thinking of something, he used his ultimate eyes. Instantly, everything seemed to become dark. The protagonist began to see everything, including the family with their heads down as they gathered in the living room. Park Hae-won spoke to her husband. "Honey, what are we going to do now?" Choi Hyung-jun became more worried. "What else? I need to go out and get at least some water. I want you to stay here safe with the children and wait." Worried, his wife didn't want him to go. It was too dangerous. However, Choi Hyung-jun didn't think they had a choice. Trying to find a solution, Hyewon asked if there was anyone with water. Choi Hyung-jun revealed his plan. "I want to go to the convenience store that was nearby. It was a big store, so there must be something there." At that moment, little Choi Seo-yeon begged Hae-won, "Mom, I'm thirsty." The father of the family felt even more pressured to get at least some water for his family. He placed his hand over his wife's and asked her to trust him and wait. Despite her fear, Park Hae-won could do nothing but agree. At that moment, the protagonist dissipated the ultimate eyes skill. The situation was worse than it seemed, so he immediately opened the store. Before listing anything, the protagonist thought of something that would be great, having a greater capacity to buy more things. He chanted, "Open skills window." Immediately, a holographic window with the skills he possessed appeared. He was excited to discover something new, and upon accessing the isolation store skill, he found the option to evolve it. A sparkle appeared in the skill window, and thus the store was expanded, with the maximum number of items that could be listed rising to 20. In addition, he received a bonus, 10% off all items. Analyzing the bonus, the protagonist imagined that it would be of great help. Besides the points spent to evolve this skill, there were still 2 points remaining. He imagined it would be better to invest in dignity preservation in the store, as he could start to find even more citizens. Thus, he expanded the store to level 3, receiving 40 spaces for the shopping list. Now, the store also had the function of restoring items. This was a function that transformed old items into new ones. With this function being added, things became even more interesting, showing that it was worth it to evolve the store to level 3. The protagonist then bought water and tangerines, something he had also listed. Making some purchases, he went on to evolve other skills. Dignity preservation came next. Providing electricity and running water to the neighbors might make it unquestionable to ask for things in return. Evolving dignity preservation to level 2, a new function appeared, the possibility of registering vassals. This function left the protagonist a little confused, not knowing what it was about. At the same time, Choi Hyung-jun was heading to the door, carrying a backpack and a stick. Holding their children, Hae-won showed her concern for her husband. Hyung-jun walked toward them and reassured his daughters with a smile. "I'll be back. Protect the house while I'm away, okay?" Worried, Choi Na-yeon asked if he was really going out. With a gentle stroke on his daughter's head, he said, "I'm going to get food and water for us. Listen to your mom while I'm away." Crying, young Na-yeon wanted to beg her father to stay. She screamed in fear, "There are monsters out there!" Na-yeon was still traumatized. A few days ago, she was with her sister, singing and playing in the sandbox. It was then that ferocious monsters appeared all over the city. The sisters were shocked to see such terrible and frightening beings. Immediately, Na-yeon took on the role of an older sister, leading Seo-yeon away. In the middle of the way, someone rescued them, precisely their parents, Choi Hyung-jun and Park Hae-won. The father of the family still remembered how frightening that scene had been for his daughters and how scared they had been. The 2 girls cried rivers of tears, afraid of losing their father. Choi Hyung-jun knew very well that this could be the last time he saw his daughters, which is why the atmosphere was somber. Biting his lips, he forced himself to make the right decision for the sake of the family. However, at that moment, the family heard someone try to open the door. Startled, they protected the children while watching the door. The person who tried to open the door fell silent until they asked, "Excuse me, please open the door." Choi Hyung-jun didn't know what to do, as he was afraid they would attack his family. Knowing it should be a person from the outside, he firmly held the golf club. It could also be a monster from the outside, making things even more dangerous. The voice continued to try to speak to the family. "Is anyone there?" The father of the family held the club firmly, while the mother made the daughters stay quiet. Everything became dark, and the knocking on the door echoed. However, when the sound stopped, Choi Hyung-jun wondered in doubt, did he leave? However, it was at that moment that the door was opened. and a strong light illuminated the house, blinding everyone's vision. With great concern, Choi Hung-jun jumped on top of his wife and daughter, protecting them from anything that might invade the house. With extreme fear, he shouted, "Don't hurt my wife or my children!" However, the voice that answered was quite peaceful. "Hello? Excuse me." Confused, Choi Hung-jun looked back. Through the door, a young man with a large bag had entered the house. Confused, Hyung-jun questioned who he was. Holding up the bags, the protagonist introduced himself for the first time. "I'm Kim Jae-hyun. I live in the apartment next door. I have water and some tangerines. Can we talk while you eat and drink?" With a surprised look, Hyung-jun looked at his family, who returned the same surprised look. Water and food, there was no reason to refuse, so the family nodded that this person could help them. Standing up, Hyung-jun greeted Jae-hyun, asking him to come in. Despite the father's welcoming attitude, the two girls stared at Kim Jae-hyun with intense gazes. Laughing at himself, the protagonist wondered if he had startled the girls. Seeing the blackout-style curtains, which prevented external beings from seeing them, Jae-hyun realized that this was a wise decision. Looking at the ceiling, Jae-hyun wondered if they could at least have some light in that place. The protagonist's eyes shone with an intense blue as he mentally chanted, "Turn on lights." The family was surprised to see the light return so suddenly. Meanwhile, the protagonist took some water bottles out of his bag so Hyung-jun could have his daughter's drink. Taking the bottles, he passed them to Nayeon and Seo-yeon. The two girls hastily drank all the water, as if they were thirsty from the desert. Seo-yeon drank so quickly that she choked, scaring her own mother. The protagonist watched the girl and then held out his hand. "Do you like tangerines?" The girl was hesitant, but he still managed to give her the orange so she could eat and hydrate. While Seo-yeon drooled from the delicious smell of the orange, Haewon decided to help her peel it. Separating the tangerine segments, the mother helped her daughter eat. Feeling the sweetness of the fruit, Seo-yeon's eyes and mind shone in shock. A big, cute smile appeared on her face. Haewon smiled, asking her daughter if the tangerine was tasty. Drooling just like her sister, Nayeon also asked her mother to feed her. As soon as she tasted the tangerine, Nayeon felt an avalanche of sweetness. At the same time, the protagonist received a notification. The trust of all 4 citizens had increased. Seo-yeon's trust especially had reached 50 points. The girls' loyalty points also surpassed 30 points. The notification that Choi Seo-yeon had met the requirements to be registered as a vassal appeared for Jae-hyun. As he analyzed everyone's information in the room, he observed the girl who had met all the requirements, but refused to give her quests due to her young age. Unlike citizens, Jae-hyun discovered he could only register 10 vassals. Therefore, he needed to choose someone at least at the level of Seo-yeon's father, Choi Hyung-jun. Although Choi Hyung-jun was at level 9, his trust points in Jae-hyun were only 31, far from the 50 needed. The protagonist wondered how he could make him trust more. Suddenly, Choi Hyung-jun called Jae-hyun's attention, who, like a wet cat, was startled. Choi Hyung-jun thanked him immensely, not knowing how he could repay the kindness. Thinking of something, Jae-hyun asked to talk in the hallway with Hyung-jun. Although confused, the man accepted. The two reached the hallway where they could talk privately. Scratching his head, the protagonist asked the man if he had received citizenship. Hearing this, Hyung-jun opened the notifications window, revealing that the whole family had received the title 30 minutes ago. Curious, the protagonist asked if anything had happened. Hyung-jun answered affirmatively, revealing that they were unable to move their bodies for a short period of time. Being frozen while receiving citizenship seemed like useful information for Jae-hyun. With this in mind, Kim Jae-hyun declared, "Mr. Choi, I'm going to help you get back to your life as it was before all this." Hearing the strong statement, the man was surprised. Jae-hyun stated he was sure the monsters wouldn't invade the family's house, leaving Hung-jun astonished. "Is that even possible?" Without saying how, the protagonist confirmed his statement. Choi Hung-jun closed his eyes, and after a long sigh, asked what he needed to do, knowing that this benefit wouldn't be free. Remembering that the man could still get hurt or worse by doing this, Jae-hyun asked if he still wanted to try. Choi Hyung-jun swallowed hard, but with determination accepted the challenge. "Even if you hadn't appeared, I was already preparing to look for food and water. I've already put my life at risk." Jae-hyun smiled slightly, satisfied with the answer. Remembering the golf club that Mr. Choi was holding earlier, the protagonist asked its price. Thinking for a bit, Mr. Choi revealed that the club cost between 400 and 500,000 won. The item turned out to be too expensive for Jae-hyun to list it in the store. At the moment, he needed to save money for the future. Mr. Choi asked why he had made such a question, but Jae-hyun quickly changed the subject, asking if the man remembered the day the monsters appeared. Choi Hyung-jun remembered that weekend and how horrible it had been. Kim Jae-hyun revealed his thoughts. "I think those who stayed at home managed to survive." Jae-hyun thought that a simple goblin didn't have much strength, and comparing himself to them, he discovered that the levels of these monsters were lower than those of an adult human. The main weapon of goblins is to walk in groups. However, this was also true for humans living in society. Jae-hyun had a plan, to form an army. So he asked Mr. Choi, "From now on, I want you to help me look for survivors." That night, night in the apartment complex where Jaehyun and the family next door lived, Mr. Choi's trust increased. Returning home, the protagonist constantly received notifications of the family's trust increasing. Choi Hyungjun's trust had reached 40 points, while the trust of the two children had already surpassed 50. Deep in thought, Jaehyun wondered if he would ever be able to find his own family. Suddenly, he heard a scream coming from the street. He rushed to the balcony. Looking down, he was startled. There was a group of people in the middle of a bunch of goblins. However, from where he was, Jaehyun felt that it would be difficult to help them. The goblins squealed furiously at the humans. One man, however, was holding a baseball and threw it violently at one of the goblins, hitting it hard enough to knock it down. Seeing the goblin fly to the other side of the street, Kim Jaehyun was shocked. Besides the young thrower, a girl appeared carrying a modified bow, shooting 2 arrows at the monsters. 2 of them were hit by her incredible aim and fell to the ground in front of a man carrying a bat. This man jumped as high as he could, and with the strength of his muscles, launched a finishing attack against the monsters. The various other goblins immediately fled upon seeing their companions eliminated one after another. In a short time, the group had already controlled the area. It was at that moment that a sudden noise caught the archer's attention. She pulled back her bow, pointing an arrow downward, but soon saw that she was aiming at a bag. Looking up, she saw someone waving from the top floor of a building. The person waving was none other than Kim Jae-hyun. Since he was very far away, the girl had to squint to be able to see him. He was shouting and waving his arms, trying to get her attention. At that moment, he heard the doorbell ring. Looking through the peephole, he saw Mr. Choi carrying a box. Opening the door, he asked the man to come in. Mr. Choi thanked him for the hospitality and took a step forward. However, as soon as he tried to pass through the front door, he bumped into a barrier. The barrier separated Kim Jae-hyun and Mr. Choi, while a notification appeared. Disqualified, you cannot enter the house. Confused, Mr. Choi asked what that meant. The protagonist also wondered what that was. He felt that only those registered as vassals could possibly enter, and Mr. Choi was not one. Jae-hyun then stepped out of the house, receiving the box, which, according to Mr. Choi, held items that could be used as weapons. Thanking him, Jae-hyun placed the box on the ground and opened it. He took a toolbox out of the cardboard box, as well as some meat knives. The next instant, he used the store, buying 5 water bottles and 5 packages of ramen. Mr. Choi was shocked to see food and water appear out of nowhere, as if they were being holographically constructed by a computer. Placing the items in the box, the protagonist handed it to Mr. Choi, asking him to place it on the first floor at the entrance. Confused, Mr. Choi asked if it wouldn't be dangerous. Jae-hyun, however, reassured him, "It's all right. After observing for a bit, I've discovered that goblins are only active during the day." Jae-hyun also had a goal, to turn those people he saw on the street into his allies. The protagonist believed that they would have no choice but to look for him when they discovered he had food. Stating he had a plan in mind, Jae-hyun asked Mr. Choi to just do what he asked. Confused, Mr. Choi asked if he just needed to leave the box on the first floor, which Jae-hyun confirmed. The family man thought the mission would be easy, and thus said goodbye, bowing slightly. Thanking him, Jae-hyun watched Mr. Choi leave. Imagining he needed to do something good for someone like Mr. Choi, Jae-hyun opened the quest window. He quickly created a mission. Take 5 water bottles and 5 packages of ramen to the first floor and return. Time limit, 24 hours. Reward, a small amount of experience. No penalty for failure. Mr. Choi was surprised when the quest notification appeared before him. A little confused, he turned around, asking Jae-hyun if the system was like that of a game. Jae-hyun confirmed, revealing that Mr. Choi was currently at level 9, stating that upon leveling up, good rewards would be obtained. Jae-hyun said he was counting on him from now on. Confident and determined, Mr. Choi accepted the quest. Choi Hyungjun went down the emergency exit, carrying the box and a golf club. He had to go down the stairs from the 20th floor to the first. Tired, he looked around as he just needed to leave the box and then go back. However, he noticed the presence of something. There were several silhouettes next to the building. Imagining that it was a bunch of goblins, Mr. Choi got goosebumps all over. Quickly, he turned to flee. However, Choi Hyungjun's foot slipped. The man fell heavily to the ground, dropping the box with water and ramen. In a lot of pain, he tried to get up, telling himself to get up, but he felt a shadow appear behind him. Scared, he turned around and quickly raised his hands to protect himself. However, a calm voice made Mr. Choi open his eyes. "Hey, are you okay?" In front of him, several people, many of them in athletic jackets, surrounded him with worried looks. A few minutes later, Jae-hyun, inside his home, received a notification. Something that is not allowed to enter is attempting to enter. The protagonist was surprised and immediately figured out what it was. Deciding to investigate, he activated his ultimate eyes, which turned his pupils white, while his entire face became black. With such sinister eyes, he had a vision of the entire building, where he could see a group of young people following Mr. Choi. The young woman at the front of the group commented, "It was from this apartment that someone threw a package of ramen." A little further back, the young man walking with the bat asked the others if that didn't mean there was food in the place. The baseball player agreed, remembering that they were starting to run out of rations. Seeing the group enter the building, Jaehyun realized they were the people he had seen earlier. An alert notification about the arrival of people popped up for him, asking if he would like to propose citizenship to them. The protagonist wondered if he should make the offer. There was something different this time, because in the process of expanding the territory, he could force citizenship on those who were already there. However, for outsiders, citizenship was a choice, which meant they could reject it. Not being able to immediately subordinate the newcomers made Jaehyun worried, to the point of gritting his teeth and feeling a headache. As he wondered what to do, the protagonist heard the doorbell ring. The sound came from the door's surveillance screen. Since it was still safe to be inside, he decided to check. He approached the screen where he could see Mr. Choi. With a worried look, the man tried to call for Jaehyun, who asked him to wait for a moment. A notification popped up for Jaehyun. Choi Hyung-jun is in the middle of a quest. Would you like to edit it? The protagonist confirmed, and with a mischievous look, chanted the edit, bring 6 guests for dinner. The quest was updated, and through the security screen, Jaehyun saw Mr. Choi's surprise. The protagonist gave his neighbor new instructions. Please tell them you will give them food first. I have something in mind. Mr. Choi went to the stairwell exit, where the group was waiting for him. There, he explained the situation to everyone. Quickly, he returned to Jaehyun's door, informing him that the group had accepted. Thus, Jaehyun used the citizen function, proposing citizenship to all 6, Ha Dong-geun, Kang Deok-soo, Kim Ga-young, Yoo Hye-rin, Kim Ji-yeon, and Moon Byung-ho. They all gained access to the 20th floor and were able to pass through the barrier. With satisfied looks, the group entered the 20th floor. Immediately, Jaehyun received the notification that his number of citizens had reached the mark of 10 people. The amount of experience and money that citizens would earn would increase by 10% because of this. The bonus brought a smile to Jaehyun's face. He never imagined he would receive such good buffs, and he was willing to welcome the group with open arms. Opening the group's information, he discovered that Ha Dong-geun was at level 23, Kim Ga-young at level 17, while the others were between levels 10 and 13. Jaehyun imagined that a level 23 person should be as strong as a Calican, so he decided to investigate him. Ha Dong-geun, who had 19 trust points, had awakened the baseball pitch skill. His D-rank skill consumed stamina to triple throwing power. As expected, such a person was a meta-human. In reality, depending on who threw a baseball, it could turn into a weapon. If someone's ability like that was multiplied by 3, it would be perfect for defeating monsters. Jaehyun imagined that the trust issue could be increased slowly. Setting up some adjustments before the meeting, he set the experience distribution for the 6 to 70%. With that, everything was complete. Now, Jaehyun would just need to give the group quests to hunt monsters. Sitting on his sofa, he would receive both experience and money. However, Jaehyun reminded himself that he still needed to get to know each of them when the time came, as this group could be the key to his reunion with his family. Suddenly, a notification appeared. Citizen Ha Dong-jeon's trust has increased. Just like Ha Dong-jeon's, Kim Ga-young and Yoo Hye-rin's trust also grew. Confused, the protagonist wondered what was happening. Choi Hyung-jun had led the group to his own house, modestly asking them to come in. Seeing a group of people, Park Hye-won became worried and quickly asked her husband what was happening. Telling her he would explain later, Hyung-jun asked if his wife could prepare some food for everyone. Worried, Hyun stated that she would have to make everything from scratch, but Hyung-jun insisted, "I think Jaehyun has a plan." His wife thought for a moment and then nodded. "I'll do it right away." She asked the group to wait a bit and went to the kitchen. Ha Dong-jun watched Hye-won for a moment, remaining silent after thanking her. Curious, he asked Mr. Choi what Jaehyun was like. Mr. Choi scratched his head, not knowing what to say, which surprised the group. He revealed that he didn't know anything other than that Jaehyun was his neighbor. Hearing this, Ha Dong-gun looked at the wall, pondering the information. Leading everyone to the living room, Mr. Choi explained that Kim Jaehyun was a very intriguing person, and that everything was thanks to his help. Hearing the brief explanation, Ha Dong-jun understood that Jaehyun was a meta-human. Looking at the bag of ramen he was carrying inside his jacket, he imagined that Jaehyun had an incredible ability to be able to maintain the entire building. Ha Dong-jun made a decision to impress Kim Jaehyun, no matter what it took. Someone capable of providing electricity, food, and water in the current world had a miraculous next-level ability, and the young thrower knew it. Stating that it would take a while for the food to be ready, Mr. Choi asked if anyone would like to take a shower. Upon hearing the word shower, the two girls in the group's eyes lit up like stars, their mouths agape. Ha Dong-jun realized something from Mr. Choi's suggestion. If there was electricity, most of the facilities could be used. As if he could read everyone's mind, Mr. Choi commented with a smile, "We also have hot water in the shower. That's part of Jaehyun's abilities." Upon hearing about the hot water, the two girls almost fainted. Revealing that the house had 2 bathrooms, Mr. Choi stated that they could shower at the same time. As he prepared to show them the way, one of them bowed hastily, while the other remained gaping, unable to move. A tall young man approached Dong-jun and asked if he thought Jaehyun was a meta-human. Ha Dongjin answered honestly, probably. His abilities are probably more powerful than mine too. The young man with the baseball bat laughed upon hearing the comment, holding Dongjin by the shoulder. Ha ha ha, don't be discouraged. All we need to do is give him a good beating. Annoyed, Ha Dongjin quickly corrected him. You're crazy. What are you talking about? We should be trying to impress him. Confused, the young man with the bat asked if he was sure. Ha Dongjin quickly pleaded with his thick-headed friend not to do anything wrong. With him agreeing, Dongjin sighed. Anyway, our goal is to get as much food as we can. Let's not make any mistakes and make sure you read the room well. Got it? The two who had spoken with Ha Dongjin immediately agreed, while the sixth member of the group looked away, a bit downcast. Dongjin walked up to him and putting his hand on his shoulder stated, Byung-ho. Sensing the mood, Byung-ho quickly agreed with what Dongjin said. Remembering difficult topics, Dongjin apologized for them being in that situation, but Byung-ho quickly made sure not to blame him. However, Ha Dongjin still blamed himself for having the guests for the inauguration of his house. Despite being upset, Moon Byung-ho didn't blame him, as he himself wanted to go. Ha Dongjin devised a plan to help Byung-ho get food and go straight to his mother's house together. Byung-ho thanked him but couldn't get excited. He bit his lips, holding back his sadness, because he was sure it was already too late. With that many monsters on the street and his mother bedridden, the possibility of her still being alive was low. Dongjin reminded everyone that Byung-ho's house was nearby. Therefore, if they worked together, they could get there. So he asked the young man to hang in there. Byung-ho nodded, and when he was about to say something, he felt something coming from the entrance of the house. Not just him, everyone else also felt it. Everyone there stared at the door, opening slowly. There was a person at the entrance. Hastily, Dongjin grabbed a baseball while he wondered what was happening. Upon seeing a man enter the house with some bags, everyone felt the same thing. He would be able to help them, that he would save them from that pit of despair. Jaehyun sat with the group at the low table in the living room. Seeing everyone silent, Park Hyun approached them, embarrassed. I'm sorry, it's a bit cramped in here. Dongjin quickly apologized back, stating they were the ones responsible for the sudden visit. At that moment, Mr. Choi approached with bowls of rice. Everyone's eyes widened at the sight of the bowls being served. Mrs. Park timidly scratched her head, hoping everyone would enjoy the food. Besides rice, salad, cold egg rolls, and various other side dishes were served. One of the girls used her chopsticks to touch the food and was shocked to see that it was real. Wildly drooling, she exclaimed, "It's all so good, it's incredible, it's a feast." Park Hyun shyly rejected the compliments, giving credit to Chaehyun, who had provided the ingredients. Otherwise, only tangerines would have been served. Unexpectedly, Chaehyun saw Park Hyun's trust reach 50 points, even before Mr. Choi reached that mark. Thanking them for the meal, the young people began to serve themselves. It was clear from Dongjin's expression how much they missed a good homemade meal. Byung-ho and the others savored every dish. The young archer marveled at the egg roll, while the batter devoured the rice like a madman. Another young woman excitedly asked Mrs. Park, "This is the sweet kind of egg roll that Japanese restaurants serve, isn't it?" Confirming, Mrs. Park asked them to enjoy it. At that moment, one of the family's daughters approached. Seo-yeon asked with a pleading expression, "I want some egg roll too." Stroking her daughter's head, Mrs. Park asked her to wait until the guests were finished. However, the young archer invited the girl. "Seo-yeon, do you want to eat with me?" Seo-yeon's eyes lit up at the invitation. She quickly hopped over the table and sat on the young woman's lap. The archer took a piece of the egg roll and said, "Seo-yeon, open your little mouth." Upon eating the egg roll, Seo-yeon melted at the food's sweetness. Despite Mrs. Park's concern, everything seemed to be going well, and Jaehyun also asked everyone to sit down and eat together. Glancing at each other, the family's parents ended up agreeing. They smiled at the thought of all having dinner together. Soon, everyone gathered around the table to enjoy the meal. Even for Jaehyun, it had been a long time since he had eaten this way. Jaehyun remembered the food in the refrigerator where his mother had left a note with love. Continuing to eat, he wished his family was well. Soon, all the dishes were clean. After eating, Seo-yeon approached her mother, saying she was sleepy. Mrs. Park took her daughter into her arms, also calling Nayeon to sleep. Jaehyun watched Mrs. Park leave the room, and so he could finish the conversation they had been having earlier. "Why can't you get to his grandmother's house, even though it's close by?" Hearing the question about Byung-ho's family, Dongjin revealed, "It's because of the goblins." Confused, the protagonist asked him to explain. Dongjin revealed that apparently the apartment's underground parking lot had become the goblins' hideout, their base. He stated that there must be at least 1,000 goblins in the place, leaving Jaehyun even more thoughtful. Jaehyun's isolation ability only applied to the floor where he lived, which is why the goblins could enter the apartment from the underground. Stating that all the apartment entrances were connected to the underground, Dongjin showed the group's fear of leaving. Jaehyun asked about the side streets, but Dongjin revealed that they were blocked by a monster much more dangerous than the goblins. Surprised, Jaehyun asked what this monster was. Downcast and with a worried look, Dongjin spoke about the beast. It looks like a wolf, as well as a bear. The reason the group of young people had managed to escape the building they were in was because this beast ended up fighting a group of goblins, creating an opening. The protagonist was thoughtful about what he could do against a monster like that. Even Dong Jian, who had seen the beast in person, didn't understand what being it was because of the darkness. Only its silhouette and its frightening eyes could be seen. Jaehyun stated that in the end, they couldn't avoid this monster forever. However, Dongjin didn't have the confidence to defeat it, as everyone had their limits. Confused, Jaehyun asked what those limits were. Downcast, just like her friend, the archer replied, "We use bows and throw baseballs. We'll eventually run out of things to throw or shoot." It was at that moment that Jaehyun held out his hand. "I can solve this problem for you. Can I take a look at the bow and arrows and also the baseball?" The pair didn't hesitate and handed them over to Jaehyun. The protagonist immediately used the item listing function in the store. After listing the baseball, he looked at the used bow and used a new function. The notification appeared. "You need to pay 1,530,000 to list the bow in good condition." Without any hesitation, the protagonist used the option. Jaehyun then asked the group if by any chance everyone could use a bow and arrow, but no one answered, shyly looking away. Still, he used the purchase option to acquire 5 bows. As the items were materialized in front of everyone, he instructed, "Even if you don't know how to use one, take this chance to practice. We will use them from now on." Immediately upon seeing the bows, Ha-Dongjin, Kim Ga-young, and Hyeon's trust increased. Byung-ho looked at the bows excitedly, telling himself that if they worked with Jaehyun, they could save his grandmother. Byung-ho's trust was the one that increased the most because of this. Excited, Dongjin commented to his group, "Our hunting speed will definitely be faster with them." The group was mainly excited because they would no longer need to put themselves at risk to retrieve the arrows. Interrupting the excitement, Jaehyun spoke seriously. "Before we proceed, we need to reduce the number of goblins." Dongjin agreed, asking when they would start hunting. The protagonist stated that they would start exactly the next day. Despite the surprise, Dongjin knew that the faster they started, the better. With confidence, Jaehyun stated, "Tomorrow, we will save Byung-ho's grandmother." The young man became extremely excited by Jaehyun's words. However, Dongjin still wanted to know if there was a plan for this. With a confident look, Jaehyun stated, "We will use a bait strategy." Everyone paid attention to Jaehyun to hear what he had to say. After hearing the strategy, they started to reflect. The young man in glasses thought it could work, but only if things went as planned. At that moment, a notification appeared. "Citizen Choi Hyung-jun has completed the quest. Reward delivered, 30,000 won." The protagonist looked closely at the quest and seeing that he had to spend money, thought of something. Does this mean that if I have money, I can increase my citizens' levels? However, he decided not to use this option for now unless it was extremely necessary. While he was thinking, Choi Hyung-jun, who had seen the quest's result, increased his trust, reaching 50 points. This unlocked his loyalty, which surpassed the 30 points needed to be registered as a vassal. Looking at the vassal options, Jaehyun used them on Choi Hyung-jun. At the same instant, the family man felt an energy take over his body. He looked at his own hands, commenting, "Something just happened to me." Upon registering his first vassal, Jaehyun obtained a skill, Summon Vassal. You can summon a vassal to your house. However, you can only summon them again after 2 hours. Jaehyun could see detailed information about Choi Hyung-jun, as well as his awakened skill, Strength of a Gorilla. This C-rank passive gave its user a strength comparable to that of a gorilla. In the vassal options, Jaehyun discovered that his vassals would gain double experience and gold during hunts, and that they could be summoned up to 5 meters away from his house with the use of the Ultimate Eyes skill. Curious, Jaehyun found a plus button. A notification appeared. "Would you like to use 1,000,000 won to increase your vassal's level?" The amount of money scared Jaehyun, leaving him with his mouth agape. Seeing the gloomy air around him, Mrs. Park asked if there was any problem. Not wanting to worry her, Jaehyun changed the subject, asking how Mr. Choi felt. Squeezing his fist tightly, he commented, "I feel like my strength is overflowing. Was it you who did this to me?" Looking at his own hands, Mr. Choi felt as if he had become 10 years younger. Satisfied, Jaehyun smiled. Grabbing a bow, he extended it to Mr. Choi. "I'd like you to also join this quest." Mr. Choi took the bow but trembled like a palm tree on the beach. Citizens gained a 10% bonus in experience, while vassals had their points doubled, which is why Jaehyun wanted him to have astronomical gains. Being instructed to defeat as many monsters as possible, Mr. Choi nodded, albeit with fear. With a smile, the protagonist asked, "I'm counting on you." With Dongjin in the lead, the group headed to the first floor. The guy with the bat asked lazily, "Do we really need to check the first floor? The windows are already broken and this place is in bad shape." Dongjin corrected his friend, reminding him of what Jaehyun had said. They were there as a rescue team. This had been the first quest given by Jaehyun: rescue all the survivors in the building and transport them to the 30th floor. Dongjin reminded them that the crucial point would be to attract as many goblins as possible into the building and defeat them, and for that, they needed as many survivors as possible. Instructing everyone, Dongjin asked if they remembered what they needed to do. Finally, the guy with the bat smiled, agreeing. With everyone in agreement, Dongjin bellowed, "All right, let's let's go to apartment 101 and stay alert. The group headed to apartments 101 and 102 on the first floor. All around, red stains spread across the walls and doors. Upon entering the apartment, Dongjin's expression turned grim. The entire group felt a tremendous dread, as well as a desire to vomit. The destruction they found there was difficult to deal with. Dongjin gritted his teeth in sadness, then turned around, calling his companions to leave. The same was found in the apartment next door. The young man with the bat grabbed it firmly, filled with hatred against the monsters, but could do nothing. After meeting outside the apartments, they shared their frustrations. Recovering quickly, Dongjian called them to go up to the second floor. They climbed the stairs and upon reaching the corridor found several bodies. The sight was terrible, leaving them perplexed. Biting his lips, Dongjian decided to proceed to the third floor. Upon arriving, the situation improved. The corridors were clean. Dongjian quickly knocked on a door, shouting, "Is anyone in there?" All the other young people, as well as Mr. Choi, did the same, checking each of the apartments. However, upon meeting once again, only sad news was shared. Frustrated, Dongjin continued the quest. The group went to the fourth floor where Dongjin hastily knocked on a door. "Is anyone there?" "It's the rescue team." Unexpectedly, the door opened for the first time. Behind it, a man with a tired expression appeared and asked weakly, "Are you really the rescue team?" Excitingly, Dongjin answered yes. The man, with a gloomy look, asked for some water, stating he was very thirsty. Hastily, Dongjin took a water bottle from his bag and gave it to the man. Upon receiving it, he asked again if the young people were really the rescue team. Dongjin explained the situation. "We are in fact residents of this apartment building, but we are here to rescue the survivors. There's a safe place we're going, so let's all go together." The man revealed a surprised look upon hearing the young man. Hastily, he closed the door to remove the chains. The next instant, he opened it again. Upon opening it, he revealed two more people inside the apartment, his children. The man extended his hand, apologizing for seeming paranoid. "I'm Hong Jung-soo. I'm counting on you." Dongjian introduced himself, shaking the man's hand. He then asked Gyeong and Hyerin to take the man and his family to the 30th floor and return soon after. The two girls promptly nodded. Shocked, the man hastily questioned, "To the 30th floor? Aren't we leaving the apartment building?" However, unlike their father, the young man left the apartment calmly. Now I feel alive again. Dad, didn't you say people would come rescue us?" "They probably have a helicopter." Gyeong hastily corrected him, revealing that they didn't have a helicopter, but that there they could eat and shower. Upon hearing about showering, the girl with the two braids rushed out of the apartment with shining eyes. Gyeong returned an excited smile. "Yes, a warm shower." The two young people quickly joined the rescue group, while the girl asked, "Dad, stop dawdling, let's go." The father of the duo sighed, seeing how impossible they were to deal with. Over time, the number of citizens increased to 40. With the large number of people, the gold and experience bonuses for citizens had increased to 90%. With 40 people, Jaehyun divided them into the two apartments. Children and the elderly would stay in Choi Hyung-jun's house, while the others would stay in the hallways. Dongjin approached Jaehyun, stating that the 40 were all the residents they could find. "We checked all 29 floors. Apparently some hadn't left their homes." The protagonist praised Dongjin's good work. The next moment, he used his ultimate eyes. Mr. Choi's house was almost full, which should be enough. With the power of his eyes, he saw Byung-ho carrying a chair, while Mr. Choi and another young man held cables, which were being carried by the two girls, Ga-young and Hyerin. Dongjian and the baseball friend were carrying a large barrel, climbing the stairs. With the monitoring ability, Jaehyun could see that everything was going as planned. Seeing that everything was all right, he said to Dongjin, "We will now move to the second part of the plan." Dongjin took a group of people to one of the dark hallways, where he would hold a meeting. To his companions and Mr. Choi, he stated, "Our goal is to attract as many goblins as possible hidden in the underground." Remembering the structure of the parking lot, he stated that they would start from the first underground floor, dividing into two teams, attracting the goblins and eliminating them. After clearing the first underground floor, dividing into two teams, attracting the goblins and eliminating them. After clearing the first underground floor, they would go to the second. The young man with glasses raised his hand, asking worriedly what they would do if there were more goblins than they expected. "Would we end up isolated and trapped on the first floor? What if something happened while we were transporting the goblin bodies?" Ga-young held her bow firmly, reassuring her friend. "Don't worry, I'll take care of them all." Dongjin also reassured him, reminding him of the number of arrows they had. The young man was about to agree, since his companions were confident, but a loud noise was heard. Everyone's attention was drawn. Before they knew it, several goblins had appeared in the hallway. Ga-young quickly shot her bow upon seeing the monsters. Two goblins were instantly eliminated, but a third dodged. However, with the baseball bat, the muscular young man destroyed the last monster before it could do anything. The three goblins were eliminated. Confused, the young man with glasses questioned, "Why did you bring the bat? Didn't you say you needed a bow?" While the two were talking, Ga-young pointed to something. Unexpectedly, the monsters' bodies were disappearing. Surprised, Byung-ho wondered if that was also part of Jaehyun's ability. With the passage clear, Dongjian called them to proceed to the parking lot. With a slight smile, Byung-ho followed him with confidence. The protagonist constantly saw the trust of the group members increasing. While drinking water, he monitored the situation through the notifications. Despite not being able to see, he could understand the situation. The most excited person who reached 50 trust points was none other than Byung-ho, who surpassed 30 loyalty points. Taehyun was surprised, as it only took a few hours for this to happen. For him, this was a good thing, because the more vassals, the more money. Upon looking at Moon Byung-ho's information, he found something strange. The young man's loyalty level was 88 points, much higher than his trust, which was only 55. However, this was not a bad thing. In light of this, Chaehyun registered him as a vassal. In the underground, the whole group was fighting with tooth and nail, shooting arrows as fast as they could. In an unexpected moment, a light appeared on Byung-ho. The young man felt a great amount of power overflowing in his body to the point of being surprised. He screamed unexpectedly, calling everyone's attention. "What's happening?" The brightness that overflowed from Byung-ho blinded the goblins. That brightness was so blinding that the entire parking lot floor was illuminated, as if a sun had appeared. But soon the light disappeared, and only the glints in the monster's eyes could be seen. With their eyes blinded, the goblins felt a tremendous headache due to the change in brightness. Dongjin quickly yelled, "We don't know what happened, but take the opportunity. Run!" The group quickly ran to another area of the parking lot, gaining distance before they returned to shooting with their bows and arrows. Ga-young increased her focus, and activating her ability, made illusory images of her body appear. Allied with them, Ga-young shot several arrows, hitting the goblins like a torrent. However, soon new goblins with outfits that differentiated them from the weaker ones appeared. The goblin army advanced in unison, even stumbling in the dark and jumping over each other. Byung-ho quickly yelled as they ran, "There are too many of them!" The group did not expect to find so many goblins. The young man with the baseball bat felt that even the goblins from the second floor had joined the horde. They hastily tried to approach the emergency exit. Soon they reached the exit, through which they ran up the stairs. Dongjeon stayed behind, trying to close the door. However, a goblin managed to get its hand through the door, preventing it from being closed. Quickly, the other boys in the group jumped on the door, trying to help Dongjeon. However, more and more goblins appeared, pushing the door and trying to get through it, trying to break it. It was at that moment that someone behind the boys ordered them, "Get out of the way!" Mr. Choi's passive ability was activated. An energy gorilla appeared, roaring as it puffed out its muscular chest. Mr. Choi obtained the strength of this being, while he gritted his teeth and expanded his muscles. With the gorilla's strength, he pushed the door, closing it with one hand. The young men were worried about Mr. Choi, but he yelled, "Go up!" Using all the muscles in his body, Mr. Choi held the door, preventing the goblins from advancing. Internally, Mr. Choi was roaring, "I have to stop them here. I have to do this no matter what." As they went up to the first floor, Dongjin yelled, "We're safe now. Go up fast, Mr. Choi." Mr. Choi quickly answered the call and ran to the stairs. However, disastrously, he missed a step and fell to the ground, while the goblins opened the emergency exit door. A burly goblin approached to grab Mr. Choi, but he yelled, "Go without me!" While Dongjin was still thinking about what to do, someone passed by him. With the bat in his hands, Dongjin's friend used all his strength to attack the goblin. Saving Mr. Choi, he extended his hand to help him. However, several goblins had already held Mr. Choi's legs. It was at that moment, when all hope disappeared, that Mr. Choi disappeared too. Seeing the man disappear before his eyes, Deoksu was shocked. Still in confusion, he saw the goblins run towards him. One of the goblins jumped, using its whole body to try to grab the young batter. However, annoyed, he swung the bat, throwing it backward. While shooting arrows at the goblins, Dongjin yelled, "Go up, Deoksu!" With his bat in his hands, he quickly ran to the stairs. While trying to climb them, Dongjin, Ga-young, and Kim Jian tried to stop the goblins with arrows. However, the number of goblins that had passed through the emergency exit door seemed too great for them to handle alone. That night, something was happening on the side streets of the apartment complex. A powerful bear was devouring goblins, while a murderous intent overflowed from its mind. With a fierce gaze, it used its fangs to tear its food, desiring much more than just goblins. The bear was attracted by the noise coming from one of the buildings. Seeing a light on the highest floor, it was instigated. With its fierce gaze, it swore, "I will finish you all." A shadow had appeared on the 30th floor, and from it, Mr. Choi was thrown to the ground. He fell in front of a young man, who commented with a sigh, "You almost said goodbye there." Adjusting his glasses, Mr. Choi looked up. Surprisingly, he found Ye-hyun. The protagonist had been observing the situation with his ultimate eyes, just in case something happened. Fortunately, he had used the summon vassal skill in time. However, Mr. Choi was not completely well. His heel had been injured. Still confused, he asked when Jaehyun had arrived there. Seeing him worried, he said he was fine. A wound like this is something I can recover from quickly. Given the situation, Jaehyun mentally noted that he should list some medical supplies. Going home, he asked Mr. Choi to wait for a moment. He soon found a medical kit at home. Medical supplies were extremely necessary. This was one that Jaehyun's mother used to use when he fell. The protagonist separated the various medicines, gauzes, and bandages. Since he only had 40 item slots, he couldn't list them all. However, he soon had an idea. Jaehyun put everything back in the large box. Fortunately, all the items together inside the box counted as a single item, the used first aid kit. Upon buying a kit, he returned and handed it to Mr. Choi. In front of the family man, Jaehyun asked him to show the injury. Although he said he was fine, Mr. Choi lifted his pants to show his leg. Jaehyun did the right thing and started to treat him, disinfecting the wound. When he put the cotton with the disinfectant medicine, he ended up making Mr. Choi feel a strong burning sensation. Still, Choi Hyung-hoon's trust and loyalty increased. After the disinfection, Mr. Choi thanked him. While wondering if the others were doing well, Jaehyun moved on to the next step. Asking Mr. Choi to rest for a bit in the hallway, he said he needed to do something. The protagonist used the ultimate eyes skill once more to look at the lower floors. With the skill, he discovered that the group had climbed the stairs from the underground. Gaeon was using her bow in front of the barricade to delay the goblins. The hit monsters tried to grab Deoksu. Dongjeon and Kim Jeom also joined in with bows and arrows to try to stop them. Giving it his all, Deoksu managed to gain some advantage and distance himself from the goblins on the stairs. The arrows passed him without hitting him, heading for the monsters. Deoksu managed to jump over the barricade, but some goblins followed him. At that moment, Byung-ho bravely attacked. He used the bow like a bat, hitting the goblins and making them fall from the stairs. Unexpectedly, Byung-ho jumped behind them. He leaped onto the stairs, attacking each goblin with extreme precision and power in his blows. The whole group was shocked to see Byung-ho fight and wondered when he had gotten so strong. Observing the situation, Jaehyun was satisfied to see that everyone was doing well. Moon Byung-ho had awakened the teleport skill. Using mental strength, he moved between two places. The power could only be used in areas he could see, and the more people he teleported with him, the greater the energy cost. Such an ability showed Jaehyun that it had been a good decision to make him a vassal. At the emergency exit, in addition to the bows and arrows, the bat was also used to eliminate goblins. After getting rid of the horde, Donggan walked up to Kim Jeom. "You got the power strip ready, right?" He also asked about the water tank, something that Deoksu and Gaeon had prepared. With everything ready, he called Byung-ho to come back, which he promptly did, climbing the stairs. After Byung-ho joined the group, they cleared the stairs and lifted the water tank. The water was poured down the stairs, flooding the place. When this happened, Dongjeon shouted, "Kim Jeom, now!" Kim Jeom quickly obeyed the command, flipping the switch on the power strips. The electricity was transmitted through the cables, as well as through the water where the still-alive goblins were stepping. The electric shock spread quickly through the monsters' bodies, as if a lightning bolt had hit the entire floor. Immediately, Jaehyun began to receive several notifications about goblins being defeated. More than 300,000 won were deposited in Jaehyun's wallet, as well as the level of one of his skills was increased, and a new skill was obtained. It was at that moment that Jaehyun felt a strong dizziness. The ultimate eyes skill was being improved while he was using it. The energy around the protagonist expanded and soon covered the entire floor, entering the range of the stairs and reaching the underground. The reach of the new skill enveloped the goblins that were being electrocuted, making a new notification appear. Hostile beings have been detected. Initiating removal. The goblins were caught by the energy of Jaehyun's skill, and like hot air balloons, exploded. New hunt notifications were received, making him evolve even more. Outside the emergency exit, the goblins faced a barrier, unable to advance. At that moment, a shadow emerged behind them. When they looked back, they were faced with a giant bear that exuded darkness. A deafening roar echoed through the entire parking lot. Sharp fangs appeared before the goblins, who were drenched in saliva. The large red bear attacked them, turning them into its new feast. Upon seeing the first goblin being attacked, the others quickly retreated. However, hungry and thirsty, the bear monster gave no respite. It moved its paw, from which sharp claws emerged. The blow hit each of the goblins, turning them into mincemeat in the midst of the darkness, where only the energy of the bear's eyes could be seen. Amid the chaos, the goblins fought back, trying to jump on top of the big bear. A war was started. Against the bear, the goblins hissed ferociously, but before the claws of that being, they were like toys, easily destroyed. Luckily, one of the goblins managed to jump on top of the bear and bit it. Just like the first, a second repeated the attack. While the bear roared, several other goblins surrounded it, attacking it like an avalanche. The bear's mouth was opened, and even its tongue was bitten. In that gloomy parking lot, the bear's eyes turned crimson red. However, at the last instant before being eliminated by the goblins, such green monsters were destroyed by an unknown force. Confused, the bear looked around. It, which had consciousness, received a notification. "You have received citizenship." Unexpectedly, the bear began to shrink in size. Its fur disappeared, revealing a human face. A weakened young woman emerged from behind that dense fur and, due to weakness, collapsed to the ground. In his apartment, Jae-hyun felt a strong pain in his chest. However, his ability showed that there was a person in the parking lot. He wondered who that woman was. By observing her, he discovered that her name was Oh Yeonju. Level 33, the young woman's awakened ability was Bear Woman. The Bear Woman skill transformed the user into a beast, maximizing all her physical and regenerative abilities. The skill's A rank, as well as the woman's level 33, surprised Jae-hyun. Leaving that aside, the trust of Ha Dongjin and Yoo Hae-rin had reached 50 points. Even Kang Deoksu had reached 50 points and unlocked loyalty, which already exceeded 30. In the face of the information, the protagonist immediately registered Kang Deoksu as a vassal. Kang Deoksu received the title of Third Stag. His ability, Iron Knight, enabled him to summon a halberd and a metallic armor that covered his entire body. Discovering that the vassal level depended on the awakened ability, Jae-hyun thought of Choi Hyung-jun, who had obtained the strength of the Gorilla C rank, being at level 20. Kang Deoksu, at level 25, had awakened a B rank ability. Moon Byung-ho, who had received the A rank ability Teleport, reached level 30. The moment they were registered as vassals, their levels were modified based on the awakened abilities. Jae-hyun felt that it was like a random box system, where ranks and powers were defined at random. If Byung-ho had obtained an A rank ability due to loyalty, then Choi Hyung-jun, who had a greater loyalty than Kang Deoksu's, should have obtained at least a B rank ability, not C. Discovering the factors for the emergence of high-level abilities became important. This information could be crucial, since only 10 vassals could be registered. It would be more advantageous to register someone who truly had potential for high-rank abilities, but not knowing what would happen if a meta-human was registered as a vassal was still a problem. A notification had been received when the expansion occurred. Meta-humans could now move freely between the stairs, elevators, and hallways. The protagonist went to the elevator immediately and used the Ultimate Eyes skill. With it, he discovered where the bear woman was. Immediately, he called Mr. Choi. The family man approached, confused. Calling the elevator, Jae-hyun saw it open its doors and asked Mr. Choi, "I would like you to bring the young woman who is on the second underground floor." On the stairs, Dongjan's group was organizing the ropes while removing the goblins from the way. They still didn't understand what was happening as the goblins had suddenly exploded. Kim Ji-in felt that someone had caused that. Dongjin considered the power of that overwhelming ability. He personally saw the moment when the goblins were defeated. Being sure about who had used the ability, he bit his lips while getting goosebumps. Dongjin remembered when Mr. Choi had stated that Jae-hyun was an intriguing person, as well as when he managed to get hot water in the midst of the darkness that dominated the world. Even the ingredients for the banquet prepared by Mrs. Park were provided by Jae-hyun. In the face of so many miracles, Dongjin understood what kind of ability Jae-hyun had. He also watched Byung-ho, who was coiling the wires next to him. Since he met Kim Jae-hyun, Byung-ho had changed his introverted personality. No matter what ability Jae-hyun had, they all led to him being feared. At the same time, Mr. Choi arrived at the second underground floor. While running to rescue the girl, a thought came to his mind. They had been chosen by Jae-hyun to survive. A long time ago, a little boy was playing with his toy car. Upon seeing someone approach, he looked back, only to see his cheerful mother. The young boy waved to her excitedly, but the mother's eyes filled with fear as she noticed something behind her son. Desperation overflowed from within her, as behind her son, several goblins had appeared. The woman went crazy like a wild animal, as her son was about to be attacked. In that mother's eyes, tears appeared, and a desperate scream echoed as she saw her son for the last time. Now, in a soft bed, she woke up desperately. Jae-hyun appeared beside her, checking her condition. "Miss Oh Yeonju?" Silently, he waited for her to get up. When she sat up, he held out his hand, introducing himself. "It's a pleasure, I'm Kim Jae-hyun." However, she just asked, "Did you do that?" Confused, the protagonist asked what she meant. She repeated, "Was it you who destroyed the goblins?" Jae-hyun withdrew his hand, confirming her suspicion. Oh Yeonju swallowed hard, falling silent. She recognized that the young man's ability in front of her was extremely powerful, to the point of being able to destroy a group of goblins instantly. Yeonju curled up in sadness while thinking internally, if it was him, would it be possible? Tears flowed from Oh Yeonju's eyes, wetting the bed. Jae-hyun then heard her murmur, "My son, please save my son. One day, even if it's just one day with him, please help me." Jae-hyun watched the poor mother cry in longing and despair, overflowing with her saddest emotions. As Oh Yeonju's trust grew, she tried not to cry. "I miss my son so much." Jae-hyun bit his own lips upon understanding what was happening. That mother must have lost her children to the goblins. Oh Yeonju cried to the point where her entire face turned into a waterfall. In the face of such heavy tears, Jae-hyun wondered if there really was something that could be done. Thinking hard, Jae-hyun tried to formulate a quest. Defeat 1,000 goblins, no time limit, no penalties, reward. Your son will be revived. Jaehyun wondered if it would be possible to send this quest, but the system did not allow it. An irritated look appeared on his face, but it was obvious. It's impossible to bring back those who have already departed. However, a notification explained the reason why it was impossible to deliver such a quest. You do not have sufficient resources to provide the quest. Please try again after acquiring sufficient funds. A look of surprise appeared on Jaehyun's face, who, with his mouth agape, asked, "If I have enough money, can I revive people?" After meeting again, Jaehyun saw Oh Yeonju continue to cry. He still couldn't say how much would be needed for her son's resurrection, but there was something he could do. Decided, he called the young mother. Interrupting her crying, Oh Yeonju looked at him. The protagonist stated firmly, "I think I can help you. Bringing your son back to life might be possible." On that face, drenched in tears, surprise and hope appeared. Trembling, Yeonju asked to be sure, "Are you saying you can revive my son?" Jaehyun confirmed his words, but stated that it couldn't be done at the moment. The expression of disappointment appeared in the eyes of that helpless mother, but Jaehyun couldn't leave her like that. Despite that, it is still possible. Willing to do anything to have her son back, Oh Yeonju desperately asked what she needed to do. There were now 2 people with abilities in Ha Dongjeon's group, both Kang Deok-soo and Moon Byung-ho. If Oh Yeonju, who was at level 33, joined them, it would be much easier to fight the monsters. Jaehyun, however, still planned to make the 7 of them his vassals. In the face of Yeonju's question, the protagonist asked, "First, you need to get back on your feet. I want to introduce you to some people." Soon, the first person introduced herself to Oh Yeonju. Ha Dongjeon, at the front of his group, introduced himself first, and Yeonju also introduced herself to them. Yeonju seemed to already know him. "You're that young man who hunts goblins by throwing baseballs, aren't you?" She also looked at Ga-young, commenting, "She's the girl who uses a bow." The comment surprised the 2 of them. Confused, Kim Ga-young asked how Yeonju knew them. Smiling and revealing some fangs, Oh Yeonju asked, playing with the group, "Don't you recognize me? We've met before." Upon seeing her pretend to be a bear, the whole group was confused. With her calm smile, Oh Yeonju activated her ability, making fur appear all over her body. In front of the group, Yeonju used the transformation, slowly turning into a bear. A snout was formed on that mother's face, while fur completely covered her. Ga-young gasped upon seeing the transformation. A large bear appeared, filling the entire hallway. Kim Ga-young pointed at it, shouting, "It's the beast from the side streets." Smiling shyly, the bear corrected her. "To be more precise, I'm a she-bear," she asked, confusing the group. "I've helped you several times. Didn't you notice that?" Finally realizing that the she-bear never really attacked them, Dongjeon commented that the encounters they had were just by coincidence. But Yeonju was willing to help them for one main reason. "The enemies of the goblins are my friends." Upon seeing that they already knew each other, Jaehyun showed his satisfaction. With a serious look, he stated he had something to say. "We are going to put the plan to save Byung-go's grandmother into practice tomorrow morning. Now that the number of goblins has drastically decreased, we will be able to save her." Hearing Jaehyun's words, the whole group felt a great weight, the size of the quest. He also warned them about something he had almost forgotten. Mr. Choi will not participate this time because of some injuries. Mr. Choi was crying, lying in a bed that wasn't his, as he had to lend it to Oh Yeonju, who was still recovering. In Mr. Choi's place, Jaehyun put the bear woman Yeonju on the quest. So he said goodbye to everyone. "See you tomorrow." Before they went to rest, Jaehyun called both Moon Byung-ho and Kang Dok-soo. He asked the 2 of them to follow him to the building's hallway for a moment. Upon taking them to the hallway, Jaehyun asked if they knew why they had been called. Confused, the 2 looked at Jaehyun. Deok-soo stated he didn't know, but Byung-ho had a hunch. "Is it related to the power we have?" The protagonist smiled, stating that he was right. Jaehyun, knowing everything, said, "This time you 2 have awakened." Upon hearing the confirmation, both were shocked. Jaehyun commented, because he knew about both. The ability Byung-go obtained is teleport, while Deok-soo's ability is Iron Knight. The ability of both should be discovered before they leave for the quest the next day. To do this, Jaehyun decided to create a quest. Large group quest. Demonstrate your awakened ability. Time limit, 1 hour. Reward, increase your strength. Penalty, sleep on the street. The protagonist wondered if the quest was good to be delivered to them. While Jaehyun was lost in thought, someone called him. Deok-soo asked excitedly, "So you're saying that now I'm like Dongjeon?" Upon hearing Jaehyun's confirmation, he snorted excitedly, trying to understand what kind of ability the Iron Knight was. Jaehyun revealed to him, "You are able to summon armor and a halberd." Deok-soo asked, confused, "Halberd?" As he was in doubt, a light flashed next to him. Deok-soo went crazy upon seeing Byung-go disappear. Deok-soo and Jaehyun stared at each other in silence. The next instant, Byung-go reappeared in another place. The young man, looking at his own hands, was excited to see that he had managed to use his ability. He was confident that he could do a lot with it. Moon Byung-go's trust and loyalty towards Jaehyun increased. Suddenly, he bowed towards the protagonist, thanking him. However, Jaehyun asked him to stand up. The protagonist explained that it would be difficult for him to use his ability to get to his grandmother for now. The young man, confused, asked why, but Jaehyun explained, "There are no guarantees that you will be able to control the ability so well. The teleportation you just did might have been a fluke, right?" The young man returned to reality after Jaehyun's words. The protagonist instructed him to fully understand his ability and what kind of penalty he would receive from using it. At that instant, a glow filled the hallway. The duo looked back and were faced with a large halberd with axe blades. It was being held by a knight in full armor. Upon seeing that his ability worked, Deoksu became extremely excited. His impressive armor increased his trust and loyalty to Haehyun. Returning to talk to Byung-ho, the protagonist made a request. Pointing to the building on the other side, he asked if the young man could teleport there. Byung-ho carefully observed the building and then decided to try. Jaehyun then gave the young man a quest. Use teleportation to move to the top of building 113. Deoksu tried to cheer up his friend, who closed his eyes, trying to imagine the teleportation. An energy appeared around him, enveloping his body. Immediately, he disappeared from everyone's sight. Byung-ho appeared again, jumping from the other side. From where he was, he looked down, seeing Deoksu and Jaehyun in the window of the other building. Excitedly, he waved to the two through the window. Thus, Byung-ho completed the quest. The protagonist, relieved, watched the excited young man waving, but it was while waving that Byung-ho fainted. Jaehyun and Deoksu were shocked to see what happened. Immediately, the protagonist used his summon vassal ability, summoning Moon Byung-ho. The young man appeared in the hallway under the protagonist's hand. Byung-ho was taken to a bed. Having consumed too much stamina, the young man remained unconscious. Worried, Deoksu asked if his friend was okay. The protagonist confirmed that he was just sleeping, so he asked them to let him rest. While Deoksu was relieved, the protagonist asked something that left him confused. "Do you exercise?" The protagonist gave Deoksu a quest. Exercise while wearing your armor, 100 push-ups, 100 squats. Time limit, 10 minutes. Immediately, Deoksu went to the floor, trying to do the push-ups. When he started doing the squats, he felt he was going to faint due to exhaustion, but he made an effort to continue even though he was sweating waterfalls. Finally, he finished the quest and celebrated with conviction. Seeing how exhausted Deoksu was, but completing the quest, Jaehyun wondered how good he was at sports to have such good stamina. Suddenly, the protagonist received a notification. Something was being evaluated. Confused, he wondered what it was. While squatting, Deoksu asked if he had finished yet. Realizing what he meant, Jaehyun praised him, thanking him for the good work. At that moment, the evaluation ended. A notification appeared for Jaehyun. Your strength has slightly increased. The protagonist was confused, however. Upon looking at his own body, he saw an energy strengthening him. He was surprised to see his strength increase. A smile appeared in the corner of Jaehyun's lips. He became more confident, as this completely changed the game. The next day, in the alleys of Busan, the group led by Dong Jaeon ran hastily. Behind them, a horde of goblins was chasing them. Deoksu irritably gritted his teeth, hating being chased. A light shone before the goblins. Furiously, Deoksu used his ability, putting on his armor and wielding his halberd while shouting, "You damn bastards!" Wielding the halberd, Deoksu charged at the first goblin, lifting it up. Wielding the halberd, he launched wide attacks, cutting their horizons. The goblins did not hold back and charged with all their might and bestial fury. Deoksu couldn't contain all the goblins, and some managed to get past him through a gap they found. However, they didn't get far, as arrows hit them one after another, making them fall. Deoksu was surprised to see who had defended his group. Byung-ho had taken a step forward with confidence, roaring, "Don't pay attention to those who got past you." Realizing that Byung-ho could handle the rear, Deoksu had the confidence to attack freely on the front lines. The goblins stopped advancing, and in a group, confronted Deoksu. Unexpectedly, the goblins turned their backs, running away from Deoksu, who was trying to provoke them furiously. The goblins tried to escape, but soon a huge shadow appeared before them, making them cry with fear as it stopped their escape. A large red-eyed bear growled at the goblins, making them retreat. With no way to escape the bear woman Yeonju, the goblins cried like children. Taking the opportunity, Byung-ho and Deoksu pulled their bows and wielded their halberds simultaneously from behind the goblins. Along with them, the brave mother bear also moved her claws, putting an end to the goblins. At that moment, Dongjeon shouted, "Byung-ho, now, go to your grandmother." Byung-ho heard the call and trembled with happiness. Immediately, he ran with all his might, thanking the group as he went. Sometime later, Jaehyun received a notification. Yeonju has completed the quest. Evaluating the completed quest by Yeonju. Jaehyun waited for the evaluation while eating cup noodles. With the quest completed, more than 130,000 won were deposited into his account. The protagonist was surprised to receive a different reward this time, compared to the one he got when Deoksu completed a quest. Curious, he wondered if the reward would be random. The obvious possibility was that the bigger the quest, the bigger the reward. Byung-ho, upon completing the quest, exhausted all the quest attempts for the day. Continuing to eat the noodles while observing the group with his ultimate eyes, the protagonist prepared to open the rewards. A different notification appeared. Big luck! Congratulations. Even leaving the ultimate eyes, the protagonist was surprised. Kim Jae-hyun nearly choked on the reward notification. He had obtained a skill point. A smile appeared on his face as this was not bad at all. Meanwhile, Moon Byung-ho ran hastily through the streets, leaving the apartment complex area and arriving at a region of common residences. He successfully reached his home and quickly ran to his grandmother's room, desperately calling out for her. The young man's eyes saw what he expected. His grandmother was lying down, resting with her eyes closed. Moon Byung-ho bent down, checking her condition. Upon feeling a hand touch her, the old lady woke up. Extending her hand, she held his. Moon Byung-ho? Is that you? Tears flowed down the boy's face as he saw his grandmother alive. With great relief in his chest, he hugged her tightly when she sat up. Crying to the point of sobbing, he murmured close to her ear, "Grandma, I'm sorry. It took me too long to get here, didn't it?" Internally, Moon Byung-ho immensely thanked Kim Jae-hyun for helping him. At the same time, Kim Jae-hyun received a notification. Moon Byung-ho's trust has increased. Loyalty has reached 100 points. Moon Byung-ho is already a vassal. The number of available vassals for registration will increase. This time, Kim Jae-hyun was surprised to see the notification. By looking at the list of vassals, he discovered that he could now hire up to 11. In the management window, he also noticed that he could increase the vassals' levels there. Clicking on the option to increase Moon Byung-ho's level, he wanted to find out the cost. However, the value was 100 million won, something Kim Jae-hyun did not have at the moment. Hitting the table, he was scared by such a high value. Crying with irritation, he apologized internally to Moon Byung-ho, swearing to at least deliver quests to the young man every day. At that moment, Kim Jae-hyun heard a familiar sound. The elevator noise made him wonder who was arriving. Immediately, he used his ultimate eyes. He discovered two people in front of a house, a young man holding a box with his sister next to him. Mrs. Park heard the sound of the doorbell and, curious, went to the door. Upon opening it and finding the two young people, she asked who they were. Scratching her head, the girl quickly introduced herself. "Hello, I'm Kim Dabin." Then she introduced her younger brother, Kim Minho, revealing that they lived in Unit 1701. With a certain apprehension, Mrs. Park asked what they wanted. With a downcast look, Dabin stated that she needed help. Mrs. Park was surprised by the girl's expression. Containing herself, Dabin continued, "I know I'm being shameless, but can I take a shower?" Profound confusion hit Mrs. Park with the unexpected question. "A shower? Is that all?" Laughing discreetly, she asked the young woman to come in. Following his sister, Kim Minho asked where he should leave the box he was carrying. Confused, Mrs. Park asked what was inside. The young woman revealed that it was canned food, as well as some other random items. Upon opening the boxes, Mrs. Park saw several different cans: corn, peas, sardines, tomatoes, and vegetables. Impressed, she exclaimed, "Oh, you didn't have to bring so much, thank you." With a shy smile, Dabin asked her not to worry. "It's not much. Consider that I'm entering a stranger's house and making a strange request." As she spoke, she noticed something with her eyes. In the corner of the room, there were some bows and a bat. Curious, she asked if they belonged to the owner of the apartment. Smiling timidly, Mrs. Park corrected her. "Oh, they belong to a resident of the apartment complex. They live in another building, so the situation is a bit strange." Kim Jae-hyun observed the siblings and analyzed them carefully. For now, they don't seem to be bad people. He decided to talk to them soon, going to Mrs. Park's house later. It would also be possible to ask them to help rescue survivors from other buildings. While he was busy with people management, Kim Jae-hyun received notifications at all times about the elimination of a red tiger, as well as about the value deposited in his wallet. This time, almost 40 million won. The level of one of Kim Jae-hyun's abilities increased, as well as a new one was obtained through evolution. Confused for having received such a large amount, he became worried, thinking that something had happened. Immediately, he used his ultimate eyes to check the situation. In the streets, the rescue group was breathing heavily, with several wounds scattered across their bodies. In front of them, a tiger was lying on the ground. In his room, Kim Jae-hyun wondered what was happening for the group to fight against normal animals. At the same time, the ability he was using seemed to be undergoing a change. He felt an excruciating pain. As he suffered, a notification appeared. "You have found people who can receive citizenship. Do you wish to offer it?" In the midst of the intense pain, Kim Jae-hyun hastily told the system to offer citizenship. The system announced, "Citizenship has been granted to Jo Woo-jin, Kang Hyun-soo, Kim Da-jung, Nam Ji-ho, Moon Hairi, Nam Ah-young, Nam Jin-ju, Kim Ju-young, Oh Dong-ju, and Baek Pyung-oh. You now have 50 citizens. The experience and money obtained by citizens will be increased by 100%. A notification that Kim Jae-hyun had never seen also appeared. All citizens have unlocked the power of trust ability. Feeling that something was wrong, Kim Jae-hyun wondered if someone was injured. On one side, Moon Byung-go was carrying his grandmother on his back. On the other, Kang Deok-soo was doing the same with Oh Yeonju, while all the others ran alongside him. The situation on both sides did not look good at all. Upon seeing that Oh Yeonju was in trouble, Kim Jae-hyun became extremely worried. The group in which the bear woman was found ended up encountering goblins during the escape. But thanks to the arrow attacks, they were defeated, allowing the group to continue advancing. Hyerin was surprised to see Kim Guillaume defeat a goblin with a single attack. Even the boy with glasses was impressed with himself. Gaeon began to feel her body lighter, something that Ha Dongjeon also revealed feeling when he heard his friend. It was all thanks to the effect of the power of trust. This passive ability increased all the citizens' stats according to their trust value, 1% for each point. The passive was something unexpected that Kim Jae-hyun did not imagine obtaining for his citizens. Ha Dongjeon and his group had at least 50 trust points, so if their abilities increased by at least 50%, the capacity they possessed would take off. Upon feeling his strength increase, Moon Byung-go commented excitedly, "I knew it! This must be part of Kim Jae-hyun's powers." Kim Ga-young and Yoo Hye-rin's loyalty exceeded 30 points. In the face of this, Kim Jae-hyun registered them as vassals. The two girls felt an incredible energy overflowing in their bodies, as well as perplexity for what was happening. Kim Ga-young, as the fourth vassal, received the penetration ability, while Hye-rin obtained poison mist. The two immediately stopped, staring at the goblins behind them. Kim Ga-young raised her bow and the launched arrow destroyed the goblin it hit, but did not stop, zigzagging while hitting all the others. Not even Kim Ga-young believed in the ability she had managed to use. Penetration consumed mental strength to launch a penetrating arrow. Upon reading the ability information, Kim Jae-hyun decided to give the young women quests. For Kim Ga-young, he ordered her to use her ability to hunt 10 goblins within 10 minutes, increasing her proficiency as a reward. Hye-rin's ability seemed more complicated. Poison mist consumed mental strength to create a toxic cloud. It was something that, if used incorrectly, could even affect teammates. Due to this complication, Kim Jae-hyun decided to keep an eye on it and act later. While he was thinking, he received the notification that Kim Ga-young had completed the quest. While her rewards were being calculated, Kim Jae-hyun decided to check the citizens on the other floors. He saw a young man in a jacket going to a bathtub full of water. Using a small bottle, he seemed to be storing water in advance. In the house of Kim Min-ho and Kim Da-bin's family, there was still a lot of food. This showed the reason why they didn't need to join Ha Dongjeon's group, as they could gather food and water on their own. Suddenly, Kim Jae-hyun found a woman lying alone. He immediately ran to the door to go meet her. Kim Da-jung, currently level 26, had the awakened ability of healer. Upon discovering someone with this power, Kim Jae-hyun would do anything to get closer to her. Kim Jae-hyun went to apartment 2902. Looking through the gap in the door, he found a house plunged into darkness. However, the door was locked. Kim Jae-hyun, however, remembered an ability he had just obtained. He had acquired the invisible hand ability, which summoned a controllable third hand. Excitedly, he decided to use it. Mentally visualizing the internal lock of the door, he imagined something that could break it. Immediately, the invisible hand transformed into a pair of pliers. Putting it through the gap in the door, he tried to break the lock. As soon as he managed to open it, Kim Jae-hyun ran hastily to find the fainted woman. He saw her lying on the living room floor unconscious. The protagonist shook her in a hurry, trying to wake her up. However, he realized that her condition was worse than he thought. There were symptoms of dehydration, cracked lips, and deep dark circles under her eyes. He looked around, looking for something that could help her. Shocked, he found a small water bottle further ahead, but knew he wouldn't be able to make her drink it. As the priority was to save her, he thought about what he could do. Opening the quest window, he created one for the woman. Breathe once, reward, recover from dehydration. To deliver the quest to Kim Da-jung, Kim Jae-hyun had to spend 10,000 won, but he was successful, and in seconds, Kim Da-jung slowly opened her blurry eyes, seeing a silhouette. Weakly, she asked, "Who are you?" Introducing himself, Kim Jae-hyun stated that he lived on the floor above. Still confused, she wanted to know how he had gotten in there. The protagonist explained that, as she seemed to be in bad shape, he forced the door to rescue her. Kim Da-jung suddenly remembered what had happened and began to cry. Putting her hands to her face to hide her tears, she sobbed desperately. The protagonist bit his lips upon seeing her mental state. Even so, he needed to ask for her help, as he was desperate. In tears, the woman heard when Kim Jae-hyun revealed that one of his companions was severely injured. Kim Da-jung bit her lips, not understanding the situation. Looking at the young man, she wondered what he meant. Scared, she mentally questioned, "Am I able to help someone?" She thought it was impossible. She also didn't understand how he knew she was a nurse. Still, seeing the way the young man asked for help, Kim Da-jung didn't believe he was dangerous, so she decided to follow the situation to better understand. "Okay, where do I need to go?" Looking at a window, Kim Jae-hyun asked her to wait a second. ground. He created a quest for Kim Da-jung. Use heal to treat Oh Yeonju's wounds. After creating the quest, he warned her that he would bring the injured person to her. He also grabbed some food, surprising Kim Da-jung. Upon seeing the oranges he was giving her, she was left speechless. Hastily, she asked him to explain what that was, since the fruit seemed to come out of nowhere. With a smile, Kim Jae-hyun replied that he would explain later. He asked her to rest for a while and left the house. Slowly, Kim Da-jung took one of the oranges. Upon seeing the fruit in her hand, she wondered if she was dreaming. Kim Jae-hyun returned to his own apartment, while receiving the notification that Kim Da-jung's trust had increased. This, however, worried him, as he didn't feel that she trusted him at first. But it was normal. No one would completely trust someone who broke into their house. Looking from the balcony, Kim Jae-hyun imagined that Ha Dong-jun's group would arrive soon. However, an unexpected scene caught his eyes. A large tiger ran, trying to attack Moon Byung-ho, Ha Dong-hyun, and the others. In shock, Kim Jae-hyun could do nothing. The animal showed its sharp fangs and jumped on the group. With fierce eyes, the tiger aimed at its small prey. Kim Jae-hyun did not imagine there would be a second red tiger. The tiger's attack landed heavily on the ground, missing the group of humans. But it was while running that Hyerin misstepped and twisted her ankle. The girl fell heavily to the ground. Kim Ga-young quickly turned around, worried about her friend. The girl was trembling on the ground, unable to get up. Scared, Kim Ga-young shouted for her friend. The tiger opened its enormous mouth, attempting to swallow Yoo Hyerin in one gulp. Weak, the girl seemed unable to do anything. Hyerin, forgetting the monster, looked back, encountering the large fangs. The tiger bit the wind as Yoo Hyerin disappeared from where she was. Confused, the tiger gnashed its teeth at seeing its prey escape. In front of the tiger, there was no one else it could eat. Hyerin panted heavily and, coughing, realized she was in an apartment. The protagonist swallowed hard, seeing how close he had been to something bad happening. Still, he managed to save the girl. Ha Dong-jun's group continued to flee from the tiger. Thanks to Kim Jae-hyun, they had gained some time. At the same time, Kim Jae-hyun received the notification that beings who could be taken as citizens had been found. The next instant, Kim Jae-hyun summoned Moon Byung-ho and his grandmother. Moon Byung-ho begged upon seeing Kim Jae-hyun. "Please take care of my grandmother for me." Kim Jae-hyun, however, asked him to wait a little. Confused, Moon Byung-ho saw a serious and worried look on Kim Jae-hyun's face. In the face of that look, Moon Byung-ho nodded, agreeing. In the dark streets, the red tiger advanced with fury in its yellow eyes. Kim Jae-hyun, at that moment, used the invisible hand ability. The giant tiger roared stridently, opening its mouth to attack the humans and swallow them. Ha Dong-jun, leading the group, gnashed his teeth, worried. He knew he had to do something, therefore, taking out a baseball, he rotated his body, imprinting all his strength. The energy granted by the power of trust enveloped the baseball, which, upon being thrown, shot off like a rocket. But the ball did not hit the tiger, passing by the monster, which furiously roared at having been attacked. Worried, Kim Ga-young shouted for Ha Dong-jun. Ha Dong-jun had fallen behind, becoming the new target of the red tiger. The young pitcher realized it was too late to try to escape and faced his end. Hastily, he tried to attract the tiger to another region, while asking his friends, "All of you, run!" The tiger pursued Ha Dong-jun, who went down into a parking lot. But the tiger was much faster than him and, opening its mouth, attacked him. Ha Dong-jun saw the tiger's fangs approaching and gnashed his teeth as he would not be able to escape. But at the last moment, an energy in the shape of pliers grabbed around the tiger's neck, pulling it back. Ha Dong-jun was left speechless upon seeing the sudden attack. Kim Ga-young and Kim Ji-yeon quickly approached, taking out their bows. At that moment, they received a quest. Kim Ga-young frowned upon seeing the notification. Kim Ga-young, Kang Deok-soo, and Ji-yeon faced the tiger that was trying to enter the parking lot, but was stuck by the mysterious energy. Kim Jae-hyun, observing them, did not think there was a need to be with the group. Currently, with Kim Ga-young's help to hunt, he had obtained 4 times more loots. Kim Ga-young, using the power of trust on her bow, pulled back an arrow. The tiger that had been immobilized felt the danger coming from that young woman. Kim Ga-young's gaze was wild, even more so than the red tiger's. The arrow was shot at the red tiger, and soon a notification appeared for Kim Jae-hyun. "You have hunted a red tiger. A large amount of energy obtained. 63 million won." At the same time, the trust of the entire group, as well as their loyalty, increased. Ha Dong-jun's loyalty reached 30 points, reaching the qualification to be registered as a vassal. In the face of such good notifications, Kim Jae-hyun smiled happily and registered Ha Dong-jun as a vassal. Sometime later, Oh Yeonju was taken to Kim Da-jung, who, extending her hands, created a golden light over her wounds. Kim Da-jung gave her best in her healing ability, and soon, Oh Yeonju's wounds began to close. While observing the healer, Kim Jae-hyun felt very lucky to have found her. Changing the subject, he asked Ha Dong-jeon how they had found a red tiger. Ha Dong-jeon sighed, downcast. I think Moon Byung-ho's grandmother's house was in the red tiger's territory. We managed to defeat one, but there was another one. Kim Jae-hyun now understood why he felt at all times that there was something wrong. Thinking carefully, the group had found few goblins when entering that area. But it was thanks to this that Moon Byung-ho's grandmother remained safe. Her being in the red tiger's territory became Moon Byung-ho's great luck. While Kim Jae-hyun was waiting for the healing results, he received the notification that the result of Kim Ga-young's quest was calculated. 73,000 won had been used to deliver the quest reward. After having used the healing ability, Kim Da-jung sighed, showing an excited smile. Kim Jae-hyun praised Kim Da-jung's good work. The woman asked if she could leave yet, but another person asked her to wait a moment. Mr. Choi had interrupted the conversation to say something. Kim Jae-hyun, I know it's not the right time, but we won't always meet at my house, right? Seeing the man smile awkwardly, Kim Jae-hyun realized that they were bothering him. This was obvious because besides Kim Da-jung and Oh Yeon-ju, there was Ha Dong-jin's entire group in Mr. Choi's house, as well as the Kim siblings, asking the man not to worry. Well, I just need to tell you what's going to happen next. He revealed that Unit 2901 was currently empty, and that electricity and all other necessities would be provided so that Ha Dongjin and his group could live there from now on. Next, he called Kim Dabin. He warned her that apartments 2001 and 2002 were empty. He would provide electricity for such apartments, so he asked her to tell the other survivors to use them to shower and go to the bathroom. Containing herself, Dabin spoke for her and her brother. Okay, we will do that. Unexpectedly, Kim Jae-hyun warned them that the two of them could exclusively use one of the units and leave the other for the rest of the survivors to share. Giving them something so good, Kim Jae-hyun stated he had a favor to ask. Dabin couldn't contain herself, asking him to ask for whatever he wanted. With a serious expression, Kim Jae-hyun asked, I want you to become a messenger between me and the other survivors. The girl was confused, but Kim Jae-hyun confirmed and instructed, tell them that the team that defeats 100 goblins first will win an empty house, unlimited electricity, water, gas, and food. In front of everyone, Kim Jae-hyun continued, say that if the team accepts 10 survivors, these survivors will also enjoy the benefits mentioned above. Finally, he only asked them to remember that depending on the floor of the dwelling they chose, the delivery of the benefits could take a little longer. Kim Jae-hyun, as if controlling a chessboard, would make it so that only those who proved their worth would gain what was needed. Thus, a quest was created for everyone to eliminate 10 goblins, so that the teams of people would defeat the 100 needed to earn the benefits. Outside the apartment complex, a young man ran hastily, fleeing from a horde of goblins. Furious, the goblins hissed while the young man struggled. He was trying to give his all, trying to get to a building. However, the goblins caught up with him and threw him to the ground. It was at that moment that he shouted, Now! Go now! 3 men appeared carrying spears and with excited looks praised the fleeing young man. Hey, you really brought a lot this time. Wielding the spears, they attacked the goblins, eliminating one after another. The goblins might have been in greater numbers, but against the ferocious attacks, they were thrown backward when hit. The goblins tried to advance, but holding the improvised spears, the group managed to stop them. Soon, some goblins that had been thrown backward were the only ones to survive. However, the group quickly noticed them, planning to attack them before they escaped. At that moment, a young man with red hair and a piercing on his eyebrow asked his friends, Should I show you something fun? He held the improvised spear, looking closely at the fleeing goblin. He threw the spear, making it cut through the air with great energy. The spear chased the goblin, hitting it without it being able to dodge. Excitedly, he asked his friends if they had seen the attack. After defeating all the goblins, the young man with red hair asked his friends how many they had defeated. One of the friends had defeated 22, and another felt victorious at having defeated 23. Hearing the duo, the red-haired young man commented, So just the 3 of us have already defeated more than 100. The friends were impressed. One of them even relieved to have thought it would take them an eternity to complete the quest. It was at that moment that the young man who served as bait shouted irritably, Damn it, Seung-yob! You said there would be a maximum of 10 goblins. Seung-yob became tremendously irritated at being questioned. What are you unhappy about? The young man argued with Seung-yob, roaring, Do you really think there were only 10 goblins in that group? Seung-yob reassured the young man, reminding him that either way, it had worked out, and they would get a house soon. However, the young man had not calmed down, irritated at almost being caught. Scratching his head irritably, Seung-yob stared at the young man with a dark look. Who do you think came up with this hunting method? Me, right? I created the plan, the spears were made by the twins, and you said you were confident in your running skills? The young man had to back down, as Seung-yob displayed an extremely dark look, threatening him. If you're unhappy, how about being kicked off the team? Having you or not won't make a difference in the points. Quickly, the blonde twins intervened, pulling Seung-yob away from the young man. One of them reminded reminding Seungyeob how well Seungmin had worked as well. However, Seungyeob gnashed his teeth because Seungmin always irritated him and dared to question him. The twin who was holding Seungyeob hastily tried to ease the situation, begging Seungmin, "Come on, Seungmin, you shouldn't do something like this. Apologize quickly." Gnashing his teeth, Seungmin gave in. "Okay, I'm sorry." Leaving the matter aside, Seungyeob called everyone to go to the 21st floor to get a house for themselves. However, upon arriving there, they found Dabin, who gave them some sad news. "I'm sorry, but another team has already claimed the reward." Seungyeob and his group were shocked. The group leader couldn't believe that someone had defeated 100 goblins before them. Irritated, Seungyeob squeezed the spear firmly, approaching Dabin. "Wait a minute, stop the jokes and just give us an apartment." Confused, Dabin stated that she was not kidding. Seeing some people approaching, Dabin pointed to them, showing Seungyeob's group who had hunted the 100 goblins first. Seungyeob was surprised to see the people belonging to the group. There were Kim Minho and a middle-aged couple. Dabin approached her brother, asking how things had happened. Her brother soon told her, "We had a confrontation. In exchange for giving up the new house, my house and Mr. Jiho's house would receive electricity, food, and other things, and his daughters wouldn't have to go on quests." Dabin was surprised, thinking that Mr. Jiho's daughters must have been absent from the quests for being underage. Mr. Jiho laughed upon hearing the girl's question. "Ha ha ha, they are both adults." The lady next to him also commented, "I guess they just look younger than they are. Just like me." Mrs. Jiho commented that her daughters must be good at using the bow, but that her husband was very worried about them. Hearing about the two girls, Minho remembered that they had been promised that they would receive a bow and arrows. Surprised, Dabin asked if the girls would continue to hunt goblins. Minho nodded, revealing that Kim Jae-hyun had asked them to continue hunting the goblins in the vicinity, as the monsters continued to appear, no matter how many they eliminated. At that moment, already forgotten, Seungyeob irritably interrupted them. "Hey, aren't you giving them special privileges? You're the people in charge, isn't that unfair?" Hearing Seungyeob's words, Kim Minho remembered something and said to his sister, "Since it seems to be unfair to them, Kim Jae-hyun asked you to send the second and third teams to the 30th floor, so they can receive their rewards." With a smile, Dabin asked Seungyeob if they had heard, telling them to go to the 30th floor, as Kim Jae-hyun would be waiting for them. Despite still being irritated, Seungyeob obeyed the request. As they went up in the elevator, they remembered Kim Jae-hyun, and remembering that he seemed younger than them, Seungyeob smiled mockingly. Wasn't their respectful tone tremendously hilarious? The twins smiled the same way. Do they think Kim Jae-hyun is a deity or something? He's at most a cult leader. Seungmin was the only one to treat it differently, and he murmured, "We are being protected by his ability, so I'm not sure if we should be saying this. We are all trying to win his favor, aren't we?" Everyone turned to face Seungmin. Irritated, Seungyeob frowned. "You damn." It was at that moment that the doors opened when they reached the 30th floor. While Seungyeob threatened that they would have a conversation soon, he was the only one not to be scared upon seeing someone. Someone walked towards the group. With a disinterested look, Kim Jae-hyun walked in their direction. Smiling with a superior look upon finding them, the protagonist greeted them. "Hello." Feeling a different aura, Seungyeob's entire group gnashed their teeth, worried. Seungyeob bowed slightly, introducing himself while extending his hand. Shaking his hand, Kim Jae-hyun commented, "I saw how you and your team hunt. You made good use of the barrier. It was very good." With a dark look of concern, Seungyeob asked how he knew. Ignoring the question, Kim Jae-hyun stated with his eyes closed, "I will provide electricity, water, and gas for Units 1301 and Unit 1502. Surprised, Seungyeob asked if that was really possible. With Kim Jae-hyun's confirmation, he asked how, and Kim Jae-hyun replied, "You hunted 100 goblins. You are qualified for it." Suddenly, making a correction, Kim Jae-hyun stated, "By the way, I am not a cult leader, nor do I have any intention of becoming a deity." Being stared at by someone who knew everything about what they were doing, the group was left speechless. While leaving them with shivers, Kim Jae-hyun changed the subject and gloomily stated that he had a request to make. Sometime later, the four of Seungyeob's group found themselves running from large orcs armed with swords and axes. They took a turn, entering a parallel street. There, someone was already waiting for them with spears in their hands. To that person, they shouted, "Throw it now!" With a smile, Hadongin was ready to fulfill the request. Using the power of trust, Hadongin held a spear firmly. He had obtained the awakened abilities of throwing and stabbing, in addition to the titles of knight and lancer. The first ability, throwing, consumed mental strength to throw objects, increasing the attack power by 5 times, while the second consumed power to temporarily increase the sword's aura in moments when he was launching a thrust. The knight title increased physical power, scaling based on loyalty, Finally, Lancer increased the attack power based on proficiency with the spear. With such titles and abilities, he threw the spear at an orc. Hit, the orc was thrown backward. Another orc advanced, carrying its axe and its furious gaze. In front of the Lancer, it wielded the axe. However, an arrow flew over Ha Dongjian, protecting him. The arrow hit the target perfectly, destabilizing it. Kim Ga-young was the one who had shot the arrow, also using her awakened abilities. Working as a duo, Ha Dongjian grabbed another spear. He threw it at the third orc that had chased the group. Hitting the last orc, they cleared the area. They thus received the notification that they had completed the quest to defeat 100 orcs as a group. After hunting the orcs, the group met a couple and their student son. Explaining the situation, Ha Dongjian asked them to follow him. Kim Jae-hyun soon received the notification that unauthorized people were trying to enter his area, and was asked if he would like to propose citizenship to them. In silence, Kim Jae-hyun observed the three people. Considering that with these he would complete 200 people as citizens, he decided to make the proposal. He received the notification that Lim Dong-woo, Sunset Byul, and Lim Hyun-sung had received citizenship, completing the mark of 200 citizens. Now the tax collection option had been unlocked. Kim Jae-hyun could collect 10% of the citizens' current balance as taxes without reducing the balance they had. Such an ability had a 30-day cooldown. Kim Jae-hyun understood that the ability would return part of the value he invested in the citizens, although he could not decide how much. He imagined that in this way it would take 10 months to recover everything. However, this was not enough time. To save his parents, Kim Jae-hyun planned to send Ha Dongjian and his team to the Nambu-Mindong district as soon as possible. Thinking about the reward distribution rate, he changed it to 30%. Considering it an investment. Doing so many actions that earned him experience, Kim Jae-hyun saw his household declaration ability reach level 10, earning him 3 skill points. With the sudden upgrade, the protagonist felt a strong pain in his chest. The expansion of his domain area was extending more and more, covering the entire building. A congratulatory notification appeared. You have declared an entire apartment complex as your own. You have gained 1 billion won as funds. The construction function has been unlocked. Even in pain, he was confused by this new ability. Kim Jae-hyun discovered that he could build facilities. There were 3 options. The solar power generator cost 133 million won, a store cost 219,000 won, and a gym cost 300,000 won. He had 1 billion in funds, and the recovery rate was 30,000 won per year. Kim Jae-hyun was surprised by such a low value. To compensate for the creation of an electric generator, which cost 130 million, it would take almost 5 years of recovery rate. He thought about installing the solar panel, but wanted to spend his money in other ways, such as evolving Ha Dongjian's level. However, he noticed something at that moment. That value of 1 billion he had received could only be used in the construction of facilities. Discovering that the funds were a different revenue from the one he received in his wallet, Kim Jae-hyun thought positively. As he could not use the value for other things, he decided to create some constructions. Clicking on the creation of the solar panel, he promptly accepted the construction. Soon, the notification that the solar generator would be built within 24 hours appeared. Feeling that it would not be enough, he asked if he could build more. However, the system stated that it was only possible to install 1 generator per apartment. Kim Jae-hyun then clicked on the store option and ended up discovering that it was better than he had thought. That was a construction linked to the store of the final reclusion ability. Items that had been registered could be sold there. The good side was that no employee was needed for the store to function. The system would produce the objects in real time when the money was paid. Kim Jae-hyun knew how Dobbin struggled to deliver the supplies to the others. However, with a store, people themselves could look for what they needed. Analyzing the functions, he discovered that he could also change the prices. Thus, he decided to build the store. The location would be in Unit 101. It would take 48 hours for the construction to finish. Therefore, Kim Jae-hyun decided to check what the gym was like. There was a brief description. A basic training center for citizens. They can improve their strength and stamina in the gym. When they train, the efficiency will increase by 200%. If a citizen is below level 15, the efficiency will be tripled. Kim Jae-hyun was extremely excited. He already knew that it was possible to evolve from exercises, but there was a great reward. Needing to define where the gym would be placed, he decided to place it on the 2nd floor. Thus, 72 hours were set as a timer to finish the construction. Leaving the construction function aside, Kim Jae-hyun thought about something else. He still had 3 skill points. In addition, the store was evolved to level 5, being able to register 500 items. A new ability appeared, Convenience. Items that were previously sold only in packages could now be purchased individually. Confused, Kim Jae-hyun thought a little and opening the store, clicked on the water option. He was surprised because from there, a new window appeared, with water options in different sizes. Speechless, he wondered how the other items were. He discovered that there were now several options for cup noodles, which were previously sold in boxes. With a mischievous smile, he commented to himself how useful that would be. Meanwhile, Kang Deok-soo wielded his halberd furiously, attacking the orcs in the vicinity. One of the orcs managed to deceive him and attacked him, but Kang Deoksu's armor was extremely hard. Counterattacking, Kang Deoksu hit the orc, splitting it like a broken biscuit. After defeating the orc, Kang Deoksu wiped the sweat, while Ha Donghyun called him. Ha Donghyun curiously asked what would happen if he threw the halberd as a throwing spear. Confused, he asked why Ha Donghyun wanted to know that. Ha Donghyun wanted the halberd borrowed just to try something. Upon taking it, Ha Donghyun used his throwing ability. With a dark look, he imprinted all his strength. To Kang Deoksu's despair, his halberd was thrown far away. Seeing the halberd fly, he shouted, "Why did you really throw it?" Ha Donghyun, however, instructed him, "Cancel the invocation and invoke it again." Kang Deoksu was confused, but quickly understood what his friend meant. By canceling the invocation, he used his power to invoke the halberd once more. Promptly, the halberd appeared in Kang Deoksu's hand. Excited, Kang Deoksu praised, "This is insane. You're a genius, Ha Dongjeon." Ha Dongjeon looked away timidly, stating it was nothing special. At that moment, Kim Ga-young approached the two. "We need to go. I'm running out of arrows." As soon as she said such a thing, she was surprised. Next to her, a quiver with several arrows was materialized. Surprised, Kim Ga-young questioned how those arrows appeared there. Kim Jae-hyun had evolved one of his abilities, creating absolute eyes. This ability had the full focus function, making it possible to use other abilities while observing a location. Obtaining the new arrows, Kim Ga-young returned to the fight. Defeating more orcs, she provided Kim Jae-hyun with a gain of 2 million won. Soon, Kim Ga-young, Ha Donghyun, Kang Deok-soo, Moon Byung-ho, Yoo Hyerin, and Kim Ji-yeon completed their quests, making Kim Jae-hyun spend just over 2 million to reward them for the mission. Finally, Kim Ga-young leveled up, which confirmed Kim Jae-hyun's suspicion, the possibility of increasing stats with ability rewards. Little by little, Kim Jae-hyun managed to see some hope. Knowing that his parents should be 10 kilometers from where they were, Kim Jae-hyun calculated that it would take 3 hours of walking to get to them. Thinking about something, he went to the elevator. Going up to the top of the building, he looked around. From there, he saw the city completely destroyed. It was in a horrible state. He frowned, knowing he needed to hurry. Starting his plan, he sought out Ha Dongjeon's group first. He began by making Kim Ji-yeon his vassal, granting him the Awakened Crow Alliance ability. Although the ability was C rank, it was great for reconnaissance missions. Oh Yeonju had the Bear Warrior ability, and Kim Da-jung had the Heal, Blessing, and Magic Armor abilities. These two women would be added to the team to provide some help. However, unlike Kim Da-jung, who had been registered as a vassal, Oh Yeonju still did not have enough loyalty level for it. He observed the Blessing abilities, which increased physical abilities, and Magic Armor, which created an armor to protect the target. People who had abilities from the beginning had a great advantage. Thinking about giving such incredible powers to Oh Yeonju, he wondered if the only option he had to increase her loyalty was with the quest for her son's resurrection. However, he did not have enough funds for it yet. Not having the necessary amount, he decided to increase the difficulty of the quest as much as possible for better rewards, setting the quest to defeat a monster above level 40. Setting the time limit as 24 hours, Kim Jae-hyun defined a heavy penalty for failure, life. However, even with a difficult quest and a high penalty to compensate for the great reward, the funds he possessed were still not enough. While thinking about what to do, he received a notification. An orc level 18 had been killed. This made him think about something, a group quest. The quest was defined, hunt a monster of level 40 or above. Time limit, 24 hours. Reward, resurrection of the sun for 1 day. Failure, loses life. To make Oh Yeonju stay completely on his side, Kim Jae-hyun went as far as he could, defining the quest. Sometime later, someone hastily knocked on Kim Jae-hyun's door, desperately asking him to open it. Upon opening the door, he found Oh Yeonju. Completely sweaty due to exhaustion, she panted in front of the door. Tears flowed from her face, questioning about the quest. The protagonist confirmed before she asked, "Yes, there is a time limit, but it is possible." Crying in gratitude, she fell sitting on the floor, washing her face with tears. Even being able to spend only 1 day again with her son, she was extremely grateful for it. Oh Yeonju's gratitude increased her loyalty, fulfilling the requirement for her to be registered as a vassal. After saying goodbye to Oh Yeonju, Kim Jae-hyun went on to his next functions. Looking at a lamp, he made it light up. He also looked at a faucet, and from it water flowed again as before. Having used dignity preservation in another house, he was slowly starting to get used to it. To such an extent, Kim Jae-hyun felt like a wizard, appropriately controlling electricity, water, and gas. Meanwhile, the store began to make some profit. 320,000 won had been deposited in his wallet. Since this value was only 20% of the sales, he could calculate that sales had exceeded 1.5 million. Using the absolute eyes, he checked the store. Several people walked between the shelves looking at the products. Some people talked to each other, making calculations of how much they could spend. A man, seeing his friend spend all his money on a bow and arrow, asked what they would eat for the next 15 days. days. However, the friend left him behind, telling him to calculate everything himself. The atmosphere had changed a lot since Kim Jae-hyun started sharing the money earned in the rewards. After a mysterious place, known as the store, appeared on the first floor of the apartment complex, the small amount of money that came from goblin hunts began to stimulate everyone's desire to hunt. As there were no longer so many goblins to be hunted in the apartment complex, they began to venture into the external areas. Kim Jae-hyun saw the level of the citizens begin to progress, even if slowly. Many other citizens also joined his apartment. There were currently 789 citizens, and everyone earned 100% bonus experience and money. Having only 11,000 spots for citizens, Kim Jae-hyun imagined that things would go up exponentially from there on out. Soon, notifications of orc hunts began to appear again. Oh Yeonju's team must have gone into action. Transformed into a bear, Oh Yeonju hunted the orcs and goblins fiercely, with her body overflowing with energy. The bear woman's gaze was fierce, scaring the orcs. With a tremendously strong mouth, she also used it to defeat such disgusting monsters. Wherever Oh Yeonju passed, the trail of the orcs was left along the way. After having defeated all the orcs in the area, Oh Yeonju canceled her transformation. Soon, the fur that covered her body began to disappear. Kim Da-jung hastily approached, asking if Oh Yeonju was injured anywhere. However, she reassured her, stating that it would not be a problem even if she got a little hurt. Worried, Kim Da-jung asked her not to try so hard, as she was defeating the monsters before they could do anything. Oh Yeonju apologized, in case it seemed like she was trying to monopolize the monster kills. Confused, Kim Ga-young asked why she was apologizing. "We even feel safer since you make things much easier." Oh Yeonju ended up smiling contenidamente. Observing them, Kim Jae-hyun realized that it had been a good idea to have put Kim Oh Yeonju and Kim Da-jung together. Both Oh Yeonju's trust and loyalty had reached 66 points. She had also obtained the ancestral lineage and primal frenzy abilities with the new awakening. The ability she already had previously, Bear Warrior, increased melee attack damage by 50%. Ancestral lineage increased regeneration by inflicting damage, and primal frenzy turned her eyes red, increasing physical abilities by 300%. While Kim Jae-hyun was observing her abilities, the three women heard a powerful roar. From the bottom of the underground train station where they were, a large monster appeared. Carrying a club and wearing light armor, an orc lord had appeared. Carrying a long metal club and with various battle scars visible, the orc demonstrated its full power in its very presence. Oh Yeonju immediately used her transformation, becoming a large bear. The girls with her shouted her name, but the bear woman was ready for battle, brimming with energy as she roared at the enemy orc. The orc brandished its club toward her, but she quickly charged with a bear punch. Intensely, the two battled with their bodies brimming with power. While the battle was happening, Gai-wong raised her bow. With a focused gaze, she shot an arrow at the orc. With extreme power, the arrow traveled toward the giant monster, but at the last moment, he used the club to block the attack and deflect it. This, however, brought an opportunity for the bear to attack. Ferociously, she threw him to the ground with her entire body. Sharp fangs overflowed with energy as they advanced toward the orc. With these fangs, Oh Yeonju eliminated the enemy. Kim Jae-hyun received the notification that an orc captain had been hunted. Experience and more than 73 million wons were obtained. Furthermore, Oh Yeonju had eliminated the leader of the Jeonpo station, and the requirement for the advanced base was fulfilled, being added to the list of available constructions. The advanced base was a structure on an elevated floor like a tower, which could be built outside the house. When activated, the designated area would also receive the same effects as the main house, but it could only be activated when a citizen with a knight title was present. Seeing the structure that cost more than 1,300 million to build, Jae-hyun was shocked, but he smiled, as he had plenty of money to spend. Thus he considered investing in the outpost, which would be built in 7 days, but he soon stopped to reflect. If he built such a thing, Oh Yeonju, Kim Da-jung, and Ha Dong-jeon would have to stay outside for a week. The time spent was a great loss, and Jae-hyun didn't believe he could waste so much time. He realized there was no utility for such a construction at the moment, as all the enemies in the area had been eliminated. Thus, he decided he would not build the outpost, postponing such construction to be near his parents' house. Jae-hyun was confident that as long as his parents were within his territory, he could protect them in the safest way possible. Going to the window, the young man pleaded, even closing his eyes, that everything would be all right with his family. With a determined look, he decided that the next day he could send Ha Dongjeon's team to fetch his parents. The station seemed quieter after the elimination of the orc captain. Kim Jeon looked with a surprised expression. He was shocked by the sudden actions of Kim Da-jung. Finding smaller orcs, she eliminated them with her own bare hands. He didn't believe a human was actually capable of doing such a thing, but he remembered that she was not currently human. Jaeon ended up realizing it was normal, as she was already strong even before receiving Jaehyun's blessing. Still, he wondered how Jaehyun had convinced such a powerful person to remain by their side. Jaehyun questioned whether she might have obtained a new skill. After eliminating all the monsters, the group received the mission to return home. Jian, who was distracted, noticed Dongjin approaching. Dongjin called him to return, and he immediately stood up. A crow, which was patrolling the area, flew in their direction and ended up landing on Kim Jian's shoulder, who received it. With a rare smile, he stroked the neck of the crow named Blackie. Immediately, Dongjian asked Kim Jian to perform a new search. Asking the crow to be careful, he sent it out again. Blackie then flew once more. The crow left the train station, taking flight into the open sky. The crow flew over the entire neighborhood, which was completely destroyed. Everything it saw was transmitted to Kim Jian's eyes, who announced, "No problems, we can leave immediately." Thanking him, Dongjian transmitted the information to everyone. Thus, the group prepared to leave. However, as they walked through the tunnels, Jian noticed something, a rat. He looked back confused and left the tracks. Looking around toward where the rat had run, Jian tried to find it but couldn't. The animal was in the darkness, observing the group. As soon as they began to move away, the rat quickly moved. Running between the tracks, it pursued the group from a distance. With its agile body, the rat jumped onto the platform. From there, it watched the group leaving the station with curious eyes. As soon as they returned, Jaehyun explained his request to the group, lowering his head. Everyone watched Jaehyun bow slightly as he made the request. They then exchanged glances. With his head down, Jaehyun asked, even though he knew the chances were low. Dongjian asked if Jaehyun's parents were in the apartment complex, but he wasn't sure. At that moment, Moon Byung-ho bravely stated, "We will help." Everyone turned to him and he pleaded back, "Please, let us help." With a slight smile, Dongjin agreed, as Jaehyun was the one who had helped them survive. Thus, the group's captain asked him to state what they needed to do. Surprised by the quick agreement, Jaehyun thanked them. Jaehyun commented on the situation with the group. After they defeated all the orcs, they could follow the underground subway to reach Jagalchi Station, which was near his parents' home. Exiting the station at the second exit, he would guide them there. Stating that he wasn't asking them to go to the location immediately, Jaehyun allowed everyone to focus first on completely taking over Seomyeon Station. Bowing once more, he thanked them for the help, wishing that everyone could rest before leaving the next day. One person, however, interrupted him. Oh Yunju, who had a serious question. "Are you unable to bring your family members here with your ability?" Unfortunately, he had already attempted such a thing. He had imagined having a teleportation target as a reward, and that had been one of the reasons he was excited about Moon Byung-ho's ability awakening, as he thought he could bring his whole family back in an instant if it worked. However, he failed to create a quest like that, probably because the range of his ability didn't reach that far. For Jaehyun, his parents being so far away was the biggest problem. He then answered Yunju's question. "I'm not that powerful. There are things I still can't do. But there's no need to worry. The promise I made to you still stands." Due to Kim Jaehyun's honesty, Oh Yunju's trust increased. She smiled for a moment, thanking him for his sincerity. Kim Jaehyun returned the thanks, acknowledging everyone for the time they were investing in him. Thus, one after another, they left Kim Jaehyun's home. Being the last to leave, Ha Dongjin wished Jaehyun a good rest. It was at that moment that he received a notification. A subject who does not have permission to enter has appeared. They meet the requirements to be a citizen. Would you like to propose citizenship? Using his absolute eyes to check the being, Jaehyun made the proposal. The person named Seo Yejin accepted the proposal. Thus, her information was displayed. Being an awakened, her skill was Queen of Rats, and she was at level 31. The rat in the parking lot reacted upon seeing the notification, and observing it, Jaehyun was quite shocked. An hour earlier, the rat Seo Yejin had frowned, trying to understand who the people she had seen were. She couldn't believe that humans were capable of eliminating orcs. Imagining that everyone was awakened, she doubted her own ideas. That's why she decided to follow them, as it was already difficult to handle the situation alone. With her own abilities, she could handle some things, but she wanted to observe the group closely. Seo Yejin followed them through the streets, running around every corner as she approached the buildings. Upon reaching a playground in the apartment complex, she heard children's voices. Several children were running and playing as if nothing had happened. This shocked the little rat. She couldn't understand how there were so many people inside that building. Looking at the apartment complex, she wondered what kind of place it was. Wanting to discover more, she tried to run inside the building. Scurrying quickly, she reached the entrance. However, as she tried to enter the lobby, Seo Yejin hit her head on an invisible wall. The little rat put her paws on her head, crying out in pain. Before her, the notification that entry was prohibited appeared. Then another notification asked, "Would you like to obtain citizenship?" Seo Yejin hurriedly squeaked, accepting. However, nothing happened. Sighing, she imagined that it wasn't possible to obtain citizenship as a rat. Soon, however, the notification changed. "You have obtained citizenship. Confidently, the rat celebrated. Immediately, she ran into the building. However, several people in the lobby were startled when they saw her. Men and women attacked her, trying to step on the small rat. Seo Yejin dodged the attacks, running quickly, but she stumbled and fell to the ground after rolling several times. It was then that she reached a new hall. Looking up, she saw she was in a gymnasium. Everywhere, there were several men training their muscles. Even women were weightlifting, sweating as they worked out to become stronger. Faced with such a scene, Seo Yejin started sweating. Scared, she wondered what kind of place this was. Seo Yejin hurriedly returned to the underground station and canceled her transformation. Kneeling on the tracks, she felt a strong headache. Soon, however, she smiled. Laughing excitedly, she vibrated. I finally found a way to survive. Tired, the only problem she saw was the way to enter the building. Yejin needed to reach Jeonpo Station. However, she saw only one method for this. Believing she could get to the station from the tracks, a monster that lived there was still a problem for her. Even so, she believed she had a chance thanks to this because, with her army of rats, she was confident that she could get anywhere. In his home, Jaehyun observed some notifications, among them one that someone had hunted a tamed rat. The Queen of Rats' skill caused all rats that encountered her to swear loyalty to her as a queen. Once rats were tamed, they would be controlled, freely sharing their senses. Using his absolute eyes, still incredulous that an A-rank awakened would willingly approach, Jaehyun wished to make her his vassal. He searched everywhere for her but didn't find her in the neighborhood. Wanting to attract her, Jaehyun created a quest. Visit the apartment unit in 48 hours, as a reward soda and chocolate. However, he paused to think about whether or not to give this quest, remembering Yeonju's question about whether he could bring his family to the apartments. Having tried several things, all failing because they were out of the range of influence, he imagined that if someone received his citizenship, they would be under his influence wherever they were. Chaehyun could believe this because the defeated monsters gave him money and experience, no matter the distance. Thus, he edited the quest, setting a time limit of 10 seconds and a penalty of being summoned. He succeeded in creating the quest, but did not deliver it immediately. The possibilities were presenting themselves, making him believe that there might be other ways to seek his family more safely. He also imagined that if the outpost were active, it could temporarily function as an extension of his territory. Jaehyun created a plan. Send Dongjin's team, create an outpost, then grant citizenship to all family members, and finally, use the system's quest function to summon them. The plan seemed solid, but the only issue would be knowing how much the quest would cost. Determined to try, he delivered the quest. As the countdown to the failed quest passed, Jaehyun hoped it wouldn't cost more than 1 billion. As soon as Seo Yejin failed the quest, 31 million in funds were deducted. Jaehyun was quite relieved, but then he realized what he had done. Before him was a completely frightened young woman sitting on the floor. Seeing her, he could confirm that his plan had worked. The question now was how to handle the situation. Scared, Seo Yejin began to tremble, with a terrified look to the point where she couldn't even speak. Chaehyun approached, greeting her. Extremely confused, she hurriedly questioned him. Who are you? How do you know who I am? Chaehyun explained himself, revealing he was the person who had granted her citizenship. While the girl was trying to understand what was happening, Chaehyun took a can of soda from his inventory, explaining, You are currently on the top floor of the apartment complex you saw while you were a rat. Apologizing for inviting her so suddenly, he handed her soda and chocolate as an apology, introducing himself. Nice to meet you, Yejin. I am Kim Jaehyun. Still wide-eyed, the girl took the snack. Stuttering, she asked if he was the one who had brought her there with that strange quest. As soon as the young man confirmed it, Seo Yejin's eyes lit up with excitement as she thought of something. Chaehyun was surprised to hear her say that she was looking after some people, asking him to accept them too. In a rush, she explained the situation. I was trying to bring everyone here, but it's difficult considering the distance. That's why I'm trying to create a shortcut. Concerned, Chaehyun asked how many people in total were with her. Counting quickly, Seo Yejin revealed there were 35. Chaehyun gulped, not imagining there were other people with Yejin. Shock appeared in her eyes when he stated he couldn't do that. To the girl in despair, he explained that it was impossible to bring everyone instantly with his power. Desperate, Seo Yejin grabbed him. No, my mother and little sister are still there. I'll do anything, please. Worried, he asked her to wait a moment. Jaehyun began to think. He had been able to give Seo Yejin citizenship, even without her being in front of him. So there was a chance that everyone in his territory could receive citizenship. Looking at Seo Yejin's information, he unexpectedly discovered that her trust had risen from 7 points to 37. Something impressive. Perhaps she was in a situation where trusting was her only choice. Thus, Jaehyun asked, Seo Yejin, are you truly willing to do anything? The girl gulped and answered hurriedly with firmness. Hearing her, Jaehyun declared, There might be a way. However, you need to completely trust me. Do you understand? Wide-eyed, she didn't immediately understand what he wanted. Jaehyun insisted confidently, If you completely believe in me, I can save your family. Seo Yejin gulped again, reflecting on his words. Hastily, she clasped her hands and swore, Yes, I trust you. I will do whatever it takes to save my family. At that moment, a notification appeared for Jaehyun. Seo Yejin's trust had increased to 50 points, unlocking the loyalty function, which already surpassed 30 points, making her eligible to become a vassal. Jaehyun immediately registered her. A power enveloped Seo Yejin, surprising her. She was registered as the 10th servant and also gained new abilities. She could now increase the stats of tamed animals based on their loyalty, as well as their speed and growth. Jaehyun asked if she had any rats near the area where her family was. Feeling the new power, she nodded. Upon hearing the young man ask her to send the rats there, Yejin agreed. Closing her eyes, she concentrated on her rats. Jaehyun immediately used the absolute vision. From where he was, he could see a rat moving. It was a level 2 tamed rat. Soon the rat reached a warehouse where several people were gathered. The people noticed the rat and immediately believed it was one of Yejin's. Above the animal, an inventory window appeared. One after another, water, juices, snacks, meals, and many other things began to overflow. The people were impressed to see the food and wondered if Yejin had sent it. At the same time, Yejin's trust continued to increase. Haehyun was satisfied, as everything was happening as he expected. Yejin's ability and the absolute eyes worked in perfect sync. He never imagined he could see through the eyes of hundreds of rats. Such a thing was so insane that it made Jaehyun smile. He had gotten his hands on the best possible recruit. Hearing about the Nambumin region, Yejin asked if he was referring to the area near Songdo-si. Coincidentally, Seo Yejin had already been to Nambumin-dong because her parents lived there. It was natural that it would be more advantageous for her to go on a scouting trip before Dongjin's group departed. Furthermore, she could just send her rats on the scouting mission. Using this, Jaehyun could confirm the location and situation of his parents. With an excited smile, Yejin asked him to leave the mission to her. As the young woman's trust and loyalty increased, Jaehyun asked if she could start immediately. Hearing Yejin's confirmation, he also asked her to go through the Busan Line train stations. Upon hearing the request, Yejin quickly warned him, "You can't do that! There's a monster at Seomyeon Station!" Jaehyun was surprised by her desperation and questioned to be sure. "A monster?" She nodded quickly. Jaehyun thought for a moment and asked if Yejin could send one of the rats to where the monster was. The girl returned to her focused state, complying with the request. A little rat scurried hastily through the corridors of the underground station. Even it was afraid to go to the location indicated by the queen. Ahead, it could see an orc being lifted by a monster long like a snake. That giant serpent ate the entire orc. With its large body, it swallowed it as if it were a small appetizer. The snake noticed it was being watched. It looked towards an area, but the little rat had already hidden. But the serpent, knowing of its existence, suddenly attacked, opening its gigantic mouth and showing its fangs. The little rat bristled, but managed to dodge the giant snake's lunge. It fled hastily, leaving it behind while it hissed. Sharing that rat's eyes was Jaehyun, with the absolute eyes ability. That was a monster so large that it made Jaehyun wonder what level it would be. It wasn't impossible for it to be above level 40. Asking if Jaehyun had seen the monster, Yejin stated that they couldn't use the station. She suggested they use Byeomnaegol Station, one stop ahead, as she knew Jaehyun's team members were strong, and it wouldn't be a problem for them to reach the place. Since what Yejin said was not a lie, he accepted her plan. Thus, he smiled and commented, "You can go to Unit 2201. The girl was confused, so Jaehyun explained that she would live there, although it needed a cleanup. Getting up, she thanked him, saying she would be leaving right away. As he watched her leave, Jaehyun imagined he would have made the same plan as Yejin if he were in the same situation, at least before they met. Opening the upgrade options, Jaehyun used the function to install an electric power generator. Immediately, several solar panels appeared above the buildings. Jaehyun observed that the generator's efficiency was good, but far from sufficient for a population of about 800 people. To be able to save money and improve the infrastructure, Jaehyun knew he needed to increase the number of people working. The three-phase system, housing, store, and gymnasium, had been something created by him. Just like the public facilities, he imagined he would need to improve such a system. Thus, he decided it was time to increase the hunt. In a dark tunnel, Dongjin and his team were running hastily. Dongjin shouted, rushing everyone, "They're coming!" As soon as they reached a good spot, they turned around, ready to attack the enemy. Numerous giant bats swooped towards them. Arrows were launched against the bats in response. Strengthened, they whizzed as they cut through the air. One after another, the monsters were hit in midair. Thus, they fell after being eliminated. Hastily, Kim Ga-young asked if anyone was injured, but everyone was fine. Worried, Hyerin asked if they could really defeat the snake Jaehyun had mentioned. Ga-young imagined that it would be fine since Jaehyun could summon them back if it seemed dangerous. Hyerin agreed, stopping her worrying. Ha Dongjin also reassured them, asking them not to be anxious. Thus, the group continued to advance. Soon they arrived at the next station. However, shock and fear immediately overwhelmed them. A train had derailed, and several orcs were torn to pieces there. Hyejin couldn't stand the sight and threw up her entire breakfast. Stating that they would keep advancing, Dongjian asked the girls to deal with what they saw for the moment. However, resuming their advance, Dongjian's expression soon worsened. He hastily ordered everyone to stop advancing. Fear appeared in Dongjian's eyes. Before them was a giant serpent, several times larger than them, with a scaly body of stone and golden eyes like headlights. Kang Deoksu shouted in fear, "How is it possible to defeat a monster like this?" Kang Deoksu immediately turned to run. Gayong hugged Dongjin, scared, and he shouted, "Everyone get down!" Everyone immediately jumped to the ground to avoid the several explosions that began to happen. Even though they had the quest to hunt the giant snake, a quest that would expire in 10 minutes, the entire underground was shaken, as if an earthquake was happening. After the tremor stopped, the group wondered what had happened. Dongjian then realized the quest Jaehyun had sent to him and Yeonju, hunt the giant snake. Shock appeared in his eyes, disbelief that he could complete the quest. However, upon raising his eyes, he realized that the giant snake had fallen to the ground. Confused, he wondered why the snake was acting that way. Numerous wounds could be seen all over the creature's body. He and Yeonju exchanged glances, nodding to each other. Despite not knowing what was happening, they acted. Dongjian drew an arrow. With all his strength, he launched it as if it were a dart. The arrow pierced the snake, which hissed furiously upon being hit. A giant snake was capable of swallowing a whole prey, but that did not mean it was an easy task. Since the living organism still moved inside the stomach, the serpent could be in great danger should the prey attempt a final fight. Snakes generally used venom to subdue their prey or coiled around them until they weakened them before swallowing. However, this only applied to large prey. Against small rats, it would not worry. That's how a small rat ran across the snake's body, quickly moving forward and diving inside its mouth. The rodent was swallowed without much complication, but it brought consequences that no one could imagine. Smiling maliciously, Chaehyun used the storage function after the rat was swallowed. He had two abilities at his disposal: store and storage. From the inventory, he took out something above the rat, releasing a gas that completely inflated the snake from the inside. The next moment, he threw flaming papers out of the inventory. The meeting of the flames with the gas caused an internal explosion. The combustion hit the great serpent and shook the underground. Yejin gritted her teeth when the explosion happened. Jaehyun worried about the girl controlling the rat, but she reassured him, stating that she had only been surprised. Seeing her sigh with tiredness, Jaehyun praised her good work. Using the absolute eyes, he discovered that the snake had not yet been eliminated. Therefore, he handed over the final blow quest to Dongjeon and Yeonju. He needed his vassals to defeat the creature, especially since everyone would receive experience, and he part of the gold and the reward. Thus, Dongjeon threw another arrow with his bare hands towards the giant serpent. Transforming into a bear, Yeonju charged forward. With a huge and heavy furry paw, she attacked. The sharp claws delivered the final message to the great snake. The attack was so powerful that it formed a hole in the serpent's body, which drew its last breath. Yeonju then canceled the transformation, as they had won. Jaehyun received the notification that the serpent had been eliminated. Over 1,800,000,000 were delivered as a reward for defeating the monster at Seomyeon Station, making it possible to build an advanced base on the site. Jaehyun's level went up, and the declaration of residency reached level 15, granting him 3 points. With the expansion of his domain area, Jaehyun felt a sharp pain in his chest. The skill's range expanded, going beyond the building and crossing the surrounding streets. Soon the notification warned that it had found beings who met the requirements to become citizens. Shocked and in pain, Jaehyun discovered that there were 200 more people. Granting citizenship to each of them, he caused the number of citizens to reach 1,000. Thanks to this, a reward was given to everyone. They developed base skills. The baseline skill was a passive that doubled the experience and money acquired. Stupefied, Jaehyun couldn't believe what he saw. Upon looking at Kim Minho's information, he discovered that the young man, who previously only received 70% of the experience from hunts, now received a bonus of 100%, reaching 170. Jaehyun found the result impressive, as it worked exactly as described. If he set someone's experience distribution to 0%, everyone would still receive 100% of the experience from the slain monster. Seo Yejin suddenly interrupted his thoughts. The girl asked if he could now bring the people who were with her. Jaehyun thought for a moment and smiled. Of course, that's the least I can do. Delighted, Yejin's eyes shone as she thanked him. Changing the subject, Jaehyun asked if she could control a rat again. Confidently, she affirmed she could. Jaehyun advised that he would tell the other companions to follow the rat and asked Yejin to guide them. A mess was spreading around the serpent's body. From there came a little rat, squeaking as it ran towards the humans. Dongjeon and the others followed it after Jaehyun warned them to do so. Soon, Dongjeon's gaze showed extreme surprise. They found Yeonju, who had gone ahead. Before them, dozens of fallen orcs were next to another derailed train. The woman, however, stated that everything was already like that when she arrived. Shocked, they realized that this was originally the orcs' territory. Traces of destruction and battle could be seen everywhere. Passing through the destroyed location once more, they followed the rat. Dongjeon asked everyone to keep their guard up, even though they had already eliminated the main monster. The rat then stopped moving and hastily beckoned the group, calling them. Deoksu was surprised by the rat's intelligence, and Byung-ho imagined that this was one of Jaehyun's abilities. As they advanced, a dark energy accompanied them. It was part of Jaehyun's absolute eyes, which watched them to ensure there was no danger. Leaving the matter aside, he looked at the 3 gained points and wondered where he should invest. He thought of applying them to the absolute eyes, as they synergized with Yejin's rats and would be useful as they continued to expand. Thus, Jaehyun evolved the skill. The instant the evolution began, his eyes turned completely black, and a pain arose. Gritting his teeth, he tried to endure as the color changed due to the energy. In the underground, he saw the group once again fighting against goblins, all of low level. Jaehyun was satisfied with the skill's advancement. He could now identify and verify the monster's level, facilitating the designation of quests so that everyone could complete them safely. Changing the focus, he decided to evolve the preservation of dignity skill, since he would meet many people, ensuring their loyalty was essential. However, just as he was about to evolve the skill, he heard a noise, like a gunshot. Jaehyun immediately refocused on his absolute eyes. Among the goblins that Dongjeon's group was facing, unexpectedly, many of them possessed guns. Like a gang, the monster army attacked Dongjeon's group. Dongjeon and the others were alert to dodge the attacks, but immediately gave up and fled hastily. They hid behind the openings in the tunnel walls. Gritting her teeth, Ga-young questioned how the goblins had guns. Dongjeon knew they couldn't fight them directly, but he smiled, as they had Byung-ho. With a grim expression, Byung-ho teleported behind the goblins. His spear pierced a monster which dropped its weapon. In an instant, Byung-ho created chaos among the enemies, attacking them and eliminating them one by one. Wielding his spear, he prevented the goblins from approaching. Those farther goblins pointed their guns at them, but this time they were hit by an arrow. Ga-young had attacked, while Deoksu, wearing his armor, advanced along with the bear woman. The fierce melee duo charged like the train that passed there. In an instant, the chaos increased even more as they dominated the battlefield. Staying behind, Hyerin and Kim Jian were astonished. Deoksu's blade, Ga-young's arrow, and Yeonju's heavy paws were enough to finish off the monsters. Using the opportunity, Jaehyun registered the revolver in his list, as well as the ammunition. Staring at the item, Jaehyun knew he should not place it in the store for obvious reasons. There were certainly advantages to allowing the use of such items. People would become more proactive in monster hunts. Even ordinary people below the level would be able to defeat orcs, increasing the population's pay and experience. However, there was a major problem. Trusting every citizen was a difficult task. The method of accepting people had been random until the present moment. Jaehyun had accepted everyone without exception, as he knew he could control things. Gradually, the benefits increased with the population's growth, but everything could change when weapons entered the equation. There was no guarantee that among the people he accepted, some with malicious intent were not among them. Envy, resentment, greed. Something could happen eventually, and in the worst-case scenario, a citizen could be lost. For this reason, Jaehyun decided that only trustworthy people would receive such items, especially those with high loyalty. He knew exactly who would be the first person to receive such an item. Among the goblins that had been eliminated was Byung-ho. He was looking around when a brand new gun was materialized above him, falling to the ground along with a box. Picking up the items, Moon Byung-ho thanked him internally, knowing they had been given to him. The group then once again returned to follow the little rat through the tracks. Soon, they had another sudden encounter. Before the group, a large door appeared. Deoksu was the one who pulled the door using his muscles. As soon as the passage was opened, dozens of frightened people appeared in their sight. Under the blue sky, Jaehyun, upon going out to the street, thanked Yejin for accompanying him. It had been a while since he had taken a walk. Suddenly, upon receiving an entry notification, he commented out loud, "I think they have arrived." Yejin was confused, but Jaehyun was already offering citizenship to the new residents. Surprised, Yejin heard familiar voices. Worried and excited, Yejin's mother and little sister ran towards the young woman. They hugged her, distressed because Yejin had been out for a long time without telling them anything. Yejin's sister's eyes suddenly shone. "Sister, you smell so good. Did you take a shower?" Yejin confirmed, revealing that there was hot water in the building. Jaehyun was pleased to see the family's interaction. He then addressed Yejin and commented, "It's true that I gave Unit 2701 to you and said you could use it however you wanted, but I think it will be too cramped for more than 30 people." Yejin looked back, remembering the number of people with her. Yejin's mother and sister became worried, as did the girl, who didn't know what they would do. It was then that Jaehyun shocked her. "I will add 3 more apartments for you. You deserve this." Impressed, Seo Yejin thanked him immensely. Thus, apartments 2,202, 2,301, in addition to 1,092 were given to her, and she cried with emotion. One after another, the new citizens had their trust in Jaehyun increased. Looking at the notifications, he noticed something. He had leveled up before checking something important. He had obtained new skills, one of them being beast management. To summon a beast, however, it cost 1 billion, something that scared him. It was at that moment that someone called out to Jaehyun, wanting to talk. Jaehyun invited the person to his apartment. With a shaken look, Yoo Hyerin followed him. The young woman wanted to say something but didn't know how. Jaehyun tried to smile, asking her to speak freely. Head down, she bowed. "I'm truly sorry, but I want to leave the group." Jaehyun, upon hearing her, even thought he had misunderstood. Hyerin revealed her thoughts. She didn't think she was good enough for the group, and even believed it would be fine if she wasn't with them. Sensing a melancholic mood, Jaehyun asked her to be honest. Hyerin gritted her teeth, trying to gather courage, and shouted, "I'm scared. I'm so scared. The goblins are terrifying. The orcs too. The giant snake we fought against was so horrifying. And when the red tiger chased me," Yoo Hyerin began to cry before she even noticed. Stuttering, she apologized, mainly because Jaehyun had always saved her and her group, but she couldn't help but think she was a useless person. "I'm worthless. I feel like I'm not meeting your expectations, Jaehyun." Jaehyun had noticed such feelings in Hyerin before, even during the rescue of Moon Byung-ho's grandmother, or when they were fighting the orcs, and also when Hyerin had been chased by the red tiger. In all these situations, Hyerin hadn't made a big impact on the group's achievements. However, Jaehyun didn't blame her for it. The poison mist ability, when used wrongly, could also hurt her companions, making it difficult for the young woman to use it efficiently. Yoo Hyerin was risking her life, but when the results were low, her pride could be wounded. In front of Jaehyun, the girl continued to cry to the point of sobbing. He then reassured her, "If that's your decision, that's perfect. I was actually in need of some help." Jaehyun asked if the young woman remembered Kim Dabin. She's quite busy taking care of everything alone, and it seems to be quite difficult for her. He revealed that they plan to create and manage shared facilities on all floors, not just his, so he was about to look for someone trustworthy for that job. Thus, he asked, "I think you are a trustworthy person, so would you like to help us?" Hyerin was a little hesitant and averted her gaze. Jaehyun paused to think and commented, "As long as someone can move and help, I don't think anyone is useless. Furthermore, your ability is powerful, Hyerin. I'm sure it will shine someday." Finally, he sighed, stating that if it was too difficult now, she could work internally for the time being, and when the day came, he would count on her again. Thus, Jaehyun bowed, thanking her, which made the girl cry even more, this time from surprise. The surprise and shock made her smile and nod. Hyerin's loyalty continued to rise thanks to this. Wiping away her tears, she apologized for showing a weaker side and returned to demonstrating confidence, stating that she would do her best. Satisfied, he thanked her, stating that he would count on her from then on. After Hyerin left, Jaehyun went back to analyzing the Guardian Beast's summoning ability. He wondered if it was worth trying to spend 1 billion won. Throwing caution to the wind, he made the final decision, to go ahead and summon. A flash and a strong wind suddenly appeared before him, like a small sun rising in the middle of the room. The magic circle forged on the floor began to take shape, releasing a large amount of energy. Jaehyun put his hand in front of his face, shielding himself from the light. In an instant, a golden, scaly egg appeared. The egg began to crack as if something wanted to break free. The glow intensified, coming from inside the egg. Little by little, the light diminished, and Jaehyun lowered his hand to see what had emerged. Black eyes, gray feathers, a small bird appeared before him. Jaehyun immediately used his absolute eyes to check the animal. That was the crow named Samjoko, a 3-legged divine beast born from the power of the sun. Since it was still a baby, it needed protection, and to grow, it required good quality sunbathing. Jaehyun extended his hand, trying to greet baby Samjoko. With bright eyes, the crow peeped at him. Jaehyun wondered what he should call the Samjoko bird. It was then that he thought of something. "You're a pitch black bird, so how about your name is Kami?" The crow flapped its wings, celebrating happily. Faced with the animated caws, Haehyun felt relieved. However, the bird continued to caw, which made Haehyun understand that it was hungry. He grabbed some snacks, and soon the little black crow gorged itself. It even burped after eating. After a while, Kami felt sleepy. It simply lay down and slept in the room. Sighing, Jaehyun commented, "What an easy life you have, huh?" A notification caught Jaehyun's attention. The Samjoko bird's level increased. The efficiency of the solar generators had increased by 100%. Shocked, Jaehyun understood the situation properly. The 10 new buildings he had recently acquired when his ability expanded did not yet have solar generators, as Jaehyun had already used most of the funds. He even thought it was an unnecessary expense to invest 130 million in something that only returned 30 million per year. However, he now saw it as a game changer. With the increase in the efficiency of the solar-powered electric generators, profits had tripled, returning 90 million per year. Loving the situation, he immediately ordered the system, install solar generators in all buildings. Sometime later, someone visited apartment 3001. After Jaehyun rang the doorbell, the person inside asked who the visitor was. Jaehyun introduced himself, and soon, Mr. Choi opened the door. Jaehyun was there to ask for a favor. Curious, Choi Hung-jun asked what he needed. With a serious look, he asked, "I would like you to guard my money." Jaehyun explained the situation to Mr. Choi, who was shocked after hearing everything. After contemplating the tax collection ability, Jaehyun came to a conclusion. Handing the money over to a trustworthy citizen for safekeeping would accrue interest. While there was a 10% exchange fee, a 10% margin was generated per month. Ha-hyun would entrust his money specifically to Mr. Choi, who possessed 89 points of trust and 98 points of loyalty. Mr. Choi panicked as 1 billion won had been delivered to him. This also caused Mr. Choi's loyalty and trust to increase. He asked just to be sure if Jaehyun would really entrust such a large amount to him. Smiling, Jaehyun stated that he could use a small portion if necessary. Bowing multiple times, Mr. Choi thanked him profusely. Afterward, he went to Kim Dabin. Leaving Hyerin under Dabin's command, Jaehyun asked her to form a team by choosing whomever she wanted. Likewise, he revealed that he had increased her salary, which made Dabin's eyes shine in the shape of dollar signs. Grabbing Hyerin, Dabin thanked him with shining eyes. Thus, she pulled the young woman, whom she already treated like a sister, to continue with the mission. Jaehyun watched them, while Hyerin cried for Dabin to slow down. Then, Jaehyun realized it was time to discuss more difficult matters. He went to apartment 2109. Knowing everyone had worked hard, he asked if they were okay. Dongjin nodded and asked what he wanted to talk about. Jaehyun began. Thanks to the monster that was in Seomyeon Station, the surrounding area has become a monster-free zone. The subway lines in particular no longer have any monsters. There are hardly any monsters left near Byeomnegol and Byeomil stations, which are close to Seomyeon. He asked them to act before the monsters started gathering again. When Jaehyun watched Hyerin's crying, he realized something. The people standing before him now risked their lives to fulfill his wishes. Thanks to Seo Yejin, who joined the building and informed them in advance about the monsters in Seomyeon Station, they avoided a disaster. It could have been extremely dangerous not knowing about the snake beforehand. Jaehyun knew that disappearing in this world was no surprise. Although he wanted to save his own family, that might be selfishness. Still, he asked the group, "I hope you can go straight to Jagalchi Station tomorrow." He wouldn't give up. At home, Jaehyun saw the crow Kami wake up after hours of napping. The efficiency of the solar panels had increased by 100% as the three-legged crow's level went up. Jaehyun was delighted, as Kami was already at level 5. Jaehyun received a notification. The crow unlocked a portion of the sun's power. Now it had partially inherited the power to summon beasts, awakening basic element magic. The term magic surprised Jaehyun. Looking at his fingertip, he wondered how to use it. A small flame suddenly emerged from his fingertip. Jaehyun felt a familiar sensation. He realized it was exactly like when he used the dignity preservation skill. Looking out the window, he thought of something. Jaehyun went to the building's common area and upon reaching the gardens, saw that no one was around. He started to imagine as if he were releasing a blaze of flames as big as a house. With his eyes closed, he extended his hand, creating the fire. Soon, all the fire gathered into a ball. Opening his eyes, he observed the fireball he had created. It wasn't large, about the size of a soccer ball. That was his current limit. He didn't think the ability was that amazing, but he soon proclaimed, "Summon gas." As soon as the gas left Jaehyun's inventory, a large explosion occurred. Combined with the gas created by dignity preservation, the attack became a major threat. Jaehyun knew the ability's potential was limitless, as Kami would continue to grow. Sighing, he set the experiments aside, as he was hungry. While eating rice, Jaehyun pointed out that Kami had already grown 3 levels since the morning. Thanks to this, the efficiency of the generators continued to increase. Even while supplying electricity everywhere, there was still a reserve left over, which was converted into money for Jaehyun's wallet. While eating, Jaehyun received a visit. Upon entering his house, Yejin smiled immensely. "Thank you for giving me some time to rest. Thanks to it, I had a proper break." Jaehyun didn't want any credit, as he was merely compensating for the effort. Thanks to Yejin, the range of Jaehyun's abilities increased, which is why he couldn't help but assist her. Jaehyun quickly handed a summary to Yejin. Dongjion's team was currently at Seomyeon Station, and she would escort them from there. In advance, Yejin revealed that she had already sent some rats to the location. She believed they would reach Choryang Station without problems. Surprised, Jaehyun asked if there would be any issues after that station she mentioned. Thinking for a moment, she recalled that yes, specifically at Busan Station. As it would be better for him to see for himself, Jaehyun sat down and channeled his powers. Following a rat, he could see several rubble piles at the station. Moreover, Moreover, the tracks were flooded. Surprised, he realized they couldn't pass through there. Pressured, Yejin revealed that she had also sent some rats across the surface. She allowed Yehyun to see through the rats, but the destruction there was equally terrible. He was shocked. There was no intact building. Everything had collapsed. Aghast, he wondered what had happened there. However, it was with the eyes of the small rat that Jaehyun noticed something. On a road, there were giant footprints. Jaehyun gritted his teeth as he understood what was happening, as well as the reason why so many buildings had fallen and the entire road was destroyed. It was also at that moment that a major earthquake began to occur, causing the building to shake. That tremor was so strong that Jaehyun couldn't help but think the building would fall. Jaehyun asked if Yejin was okay, but she was more scared and apprehensive to find out what had happened. Jaehyun looked at the window, trying to understand what the tremors had been. At that moment, someone knocked frantically on the apartment door, shouting, "Jaehyun, you need to see this!" Jaehyun called Yejin out and met the desperate Mr. Choi. Jaehyun followed Mr. Choi, who led him to his own apartment. From there, they could see the Seomyeon station area. Jaehyun gritted his teeth, worried. He quickly followed Mr. Choi to the balcony. Looking out the window, he was incredulous. In the middle of the city, a stone giant with pointed horns and spikes all over its body was punching the buildings, destroying them. With its superior size, it was easy for the monster to cause a massive apocalypse just by moving its arms. Immediately, Jaehyun used the summon vassal skill. Before they realized it, Byung-ho and the others appeared in Mr. Choi's living room. Confused, they wondered where they were, as they remembered there had been an earthquake. However, it was when they looked out the window that they realized the terrifying truth. The giant monster's single red eye was looking in their direction. The monster punched the ground hard before starting to move. Mr. Choi screamed in fear, "It's coming this way!" Jaehyun was direct, stating that they needed to stop it. However, he didn't know how to do that. He wondered if his skills could handle a monster like that. Jaehyun gritted his teeth, seeing himself at a crossroads. At that moment, someone stood up from the floor. With a serious look, Oh Yeonju pleaded, "Please let me do this." The protagonist was surprised. Yeonju's fighting spirit was boiling. Soon the worry turned into relief, and he calmly asked, "Do you think it's possible?" With a stern gaze, she declared, "I will make it possible." Jaehyun then created a quest for Yeonju, hunt the cyclops in 24 hours. As a reward, the resurrection of her son for 1 day. Jaehyun then moved on to the step of relaying the plan to everyone. A few minutes later, going down to the building's lobby, Jaehyun asked once more, "Does everyone understand the plan?" Everyone before him confirmed. Team 1 consisted of Oh Yeonju, Dongyeon, Kim Da-jung, and Jang Deoksu. Team 2 consisted of Kim Ga-young, Moon Byung-ho, and Kim Jeon. The third and final team consisted of Jaehyun himself, along with Seo Ye-jin. Stating that he would take care of things where they were, Jaehyun sent everyone to their posts. Immediately, they all advanced quickly, leaving the building. At that moment, someone rushed over to Jaehyun. Hyerin was there to inform him that everyone who had completed military service had been sent to the front gate, while the rest had been guided to the underground parking lot. Jaehyun then asked Hyerin to go to the parking lot, but she hastily refused, stating she wanted to help. With an angry look, she stated with conviction, "I will help, even if just a little." Despite the young woman's expression, her hands were trembling with fear. Seeing the attempt to overcome, Jaehyun asked if she would be all right. Even trembling with fear and knowing that she felt that way, she affirmed, "I'm going to try to be brave." Following the young woman's attitude, he turned, calling Hyerin and Yejin. "Let's go to the main gate." At the main gate, Jaehyun took account. There were many people there, but out of 1,200 people, only 101 had completed military service, a ridiculously low number. A man in the crowd then raised his hand. "Excuse me, what should we do?" Having looked around, Jaehyun asked him, "Where are Baek Seung-yeob and the twins?" The young man looked away, feeling pressured. This made Jaehyun quite irritated, as the trio had fled. Baek Seung-yeob and hundreds of others pretended that nothing had happened and hid in the underground parking lot. The hatred for such cowards made Jaehyun grit his teeth. The people gathered in front of them weren't idiots blindly risking their lives. They went there because they understood that everyone would perish if they didn't fight. Even afraid, everyone was there to protect their precious families, as well as themselves. Seeing Hyerin's effort, Jaehyun remembered something someone had said. Courage is not about not feeling fear. It's about not giving up and acting despite the fear. To survive in a world consumed by fear, people with great courage were needed. Because of this, Jaehyun made a concession and opened the store, announcing, "I will buy weapons for the 101 people who are here, and I will also adjust the experience and item drop rate to 100%. Faced with real weapons, people cheered, believing they might actually have a chance. Jaehyun was doing this to reward them. Soon the noises became louder. Jaehyun used the absolute eyes to check them. Thus, the beginning of the great mission began. The cyclops giant with stone muscles roared as it advanced through the streets. Dongjin was hiding in a building, watching it. The young pitcher's gaze was one of someone prepared to act. From the window where he was, Dongjin threw an iron rod. The sharp rod pierced the stone skin, making the Cyclops roar with hatred and look toward the building. Even with a single eye, the monster located Dongjin. The young man cursed as he gritted his teeth as the Cyclops prepared a punch in his direction. At that moment, a grizzly bear charged against the monster's stone leg. Oh Yeonju attacked, trying to make it lose its balance. The Cyclops seemed furious when it noticed the animal and tried to stomp it with its stone feet. As the attack landed, the bear was thrown away. She roared shrilly in pain from the impact wave and eventually hit a large wall. The Cyclops looked at the bear slumped against the wall and moved. It raised its stone fist, aiming the punch at her. However, someone shouted, interrupting it, "Hey, you!" A large loudspeaker was being used to insult the monster. A knight with a halberd bravely provoked it. The Cyclops stared at him for a second and then looked at the attack that had hit it earlier. Deoksu wondered why the monster was staring at him so differently. The Cyclops had seen the halberd that Deoksu was holding and classified it as the same weapon that had struck it. Marking Deoksu as its new target, the Cyclops ran toward him. Destroying the street with every step, it quickly approached the knight. Seeing himself in danger, Deoksu was shocked, his jaw dropping. He hastily retreated, screaming for his life. With his absolute eyes, Jaehyun saw the monster approaching. He hurriedly spun around to everyone. "Get ready! It'll be here soon!" Deoksu ran desperately, and the monster was getting closer with every step. He was tired of running, but soon he reached the condominium's protective barrier, and that's when Jaehyun shouted, "Now!" A crow dived at the Cyclops, hitting it in the eye. A combined attack was being prepared by Ga-young and Kim Jeon. As soon as the monster was blinded, the young woman shot her arrow. With extreme power, the arrow did not stop before the hand the Cyclops used to shield itself. Byung-go then teleported above the Cyclops, which was screaming in pain. Carrying numerous rats, Byung-go released them, causing them to fall inside the Cyclops' mouth. Immediately, he yelled to Jaehyun. The protagonist saw everything going according to plan and used the gas summoning with the rats. The Cyclops opened its injured eye as it felt an internal problem. It was expelling a strange gas from its mouth and had inflated like a balloon. Jaehyun waited for the perfect opportunity while continuing to summon gas. When it arrived, he used the basic attribute magic. With the creation of fire, a large explosion occurred. The entire street was filled with dense smoke. The Cyclops fell to its knees over the barrier. Many were afraid when they saw the Cyclops begin to topple toward them. But Jaehyun ordered, "Hold position." Everything had gone perfectly according to plan until then. Now was the time for the citizens to concentrate their firepower against the creature that had fallen onto the defensive wall. However, Jaehyun expected the final attack to be given by one of his vassals. While Jaehyun was deep in thought, Mr. Choi trembled, warning him, "Behind you." Jaehyun thought everything was fine since the monster would fall onto the defensive wall anyway. However, looking back, he found the enormous eye staring at him. Jaehyun was shocked. He couldn't believe the monster had withstood the attack. The stone Cyclops raised its arm and with all its strength and weight, attacked. The attack on the dome brought Jaehyun a notification that an object was attempting to enter the perimeter. Even though he was shocked, Jaehyun knew this meant the monster had been blocked. Mr. Choi shouted hastily, "Open fire!" Adults and the elderly raised their weapons toward the monster and shot at the Cyclops' eye. Being hit, the stone monster roared in pain, bringing its hands to its eye. Jaehyun had no confidence that the barrier would stop other attacks. He feared a catastrophe would happen. Thus, he acted by raising his hand and using the invisible hand skill along with gigantification. Combining skills in moments of emergency was something he had unlocked after investing his saved points. The Cyclops raised its hand again for another attack. Everyone below the barrier was afraid, as the Cyclops' fist violently advanced. This time, 2 attacks landed on the barrier, notifying Jaehyun that something was trying to enter without permission. Seeing how the barrier had withstood the attacks, everyone became excited. They raised their weapons once more, targeting the Cyclops. The monster was hit countless times, which made it even more furious. Even though they were small, the wounds constantly accumulated, causing progressive damage. This made Jaehyun believe they could succeed if they continued to attack. However, since they did not know if there would be a decisive attack, countermeasures were taken. A spear crossed the street toward the Cyclops. Without realizing it, the monster was attacked from behind. Jaehyun smiled, satisfied. Dongjeon and Oh Yeonju's team had returned to the battle. Roaring because it had suffered great damage, the Cyclops turned against them. Counting on the group, Jaehyun summoned an armorer filled with spears. One after another, the weapons appeared around Dongjeon. With a stern gaze, the pitcher prepared himself once more. Shouting, he launched several spears wrapped in energy against the Cyclops. Like rain, the spears struck the stone body. At the same time, arrows traveled through the sky, curving before falling onto the monster's back. Gyeong shouted, "Keep going, we'll provide cover." Spears and arrows continued to fall onto the cyclops, which hunched down to protect itself. At that same moment, Jaehyun received the notification that the three-legged crow's level had increased, improving the efficiency of the solar energy generator once again. Thanks to this, he inherited part of the summoned beast's powers. Basic fire magic evolved into intermediate fire magic. The three-legged crow detected the intruder in the domain and asked to release its own power. A notification appeared for Jaehyun to authorize. He reasoned that the detected enemy could only be the cyclops, but he wondered what the little bird planned to do. Still, he decided to grant permission. Jaehyun was startled, however, when 300 million won were consumed. From the solar panels, the energy converged into a single point, as if a sun was being created. Jaehyun looked up, surprised, as all the energy flowed toward his apartment. A loud bang happened. A small crow flew out the window and grew in size. Soon, Kami opened its wings, revealing its powerful being. Opening its beak, it gathered an enormous amount of solar energy. The heat attracted the Cyclops' attention. Before Haehyun realized it, a solar ray passed by him and charged against the monster. The attack landed on the Cyclops, drilling through it like a bore. The stone giant collapsed, roaring to the skies. Dongjin was paralyzed by the sight, but a bear charged forward, rushing against the monster. In its single eye, the Cyclops saw the bear jump toward it, but it could do nothing. With the strength of tons, she hunted the level 51 Cyclops, yielding more than 31 billion won to Jaehyun and allowing him to level up multiple times. As soon as he evolved, Jaehyun felt a new power take over him. He hunched over, trying to suppress the pain as his domain expanded. The range of Jaehyun's residence skills spread, encompassing streets and buildings. Soon, the entire apartment complex was enveloped by the skill. As a form of congratulation, the system presented him with billions of won. Jaehyun fell to the floor from the pain, and Kami quickly joined him. However, the crow was there to boast. Annoyed, Jaehyun argued with him for having used 300 million won without permission. Despite the anger, he felt happy, as Kami had been decisive. He ended up petting the small black crow, which seemed to smile. Although the beasts were restricted to the territory, the cost benefit was enormous. 300 million had turned into 30 billion. Jaehyun wondered if he should just summon all 10 beasts right away. With such performance, there was no reason to hesitate. However, upon clicking the skill, he discovered that the next summon cost billions. At the same moment, a shock appeared in Jaehyun's eyes. He looked up toward Yeonju. The woman was standing on the stone cyclops, looking at the horizon. A mission complete notification appeared for both of them. For Jaehyun, 324 million was debited for the reward payment. In tears, Yeonju waited for the fulfillment of her wish. In an underground area, a man stretched out his hand, creating water to fill a small bottle. The young woman in front of him thanked him for it. Tired, he called the next person in line. The group was already almost out of food supplies. The purple-haired man could make water appear, but the food they had managed to collect was gone. He saw the group reaching its limit. As he imagined they would eventually need to leave the basement, he felt a great tremor. He looked at the others, asking what had caused the earthquake. At that moment, a man rushed into the basement shouting, "Junhyuk, you need to see this! A terrible monster has appeared!" Shock appeared in Junhyuk's eyes. He ran up the stairs of the abandoned building, reaching the top. From there, he could see the Cyclops roaring fiercely. Junhyuk hurriedly told the gray-haired man to ask everyone to hide in the basement. Trembling, the man asked what they would do, but Junhyuk didn't believe they could do anything against that thing. As the desperation of the two grew, a flash of light appeared in the sky. The light decimated the Cyclops while they were still contemplating begging the heavens for salvation. They noticed the light out of the corner of their eyes and looked at the defeated monster, still not understanding what had happened. The moment Junhyuk saw the attack, he understood. That had been caused by an awakened, someone on a completely different level than him. Thus, he declared to the man named Hyunchan, "Gather the people immediately." Hyunchan was afraid of the possibility of going to the attack site, but Junhyuk was sure that to survive in that catastrophic world, they would need to ally with that person. As they walked down the road, many people asked Junhyuk if he was sure. However, he reminded them of the situation they were in. Leaving the rest to fate, the group arrived at the apartment complex. At the entrance, Junhyuk stated, "I think this is it." Hyunchan was surprised to see everything so calm, such a clean building. However, when trying to enter, he bumped against a barrier that stopped him. In front of the group, a restricted access notification appeared. Right afterward, another one popped up. "Do you wish to obtain citizenship?" As soon as they received citizenship, they entered the apartment complex. But immediately a new notification appeared. Locate the 30th floor of building 114 in 1 hour. Reward, small amount of experience. As soon as he met the group, the protagonist greeted Lee Junhyuk, introducing himself as Kim Jae-hyun. Shock appeared on Lee Junhyuk's face at such pressure. In an instant, he knew that the man in front of him had been the one who forced the giant to its knees. Feeling his instincts scream, Lee Junhyuk grabbed Jae-hyun's hands, bowing as he trembled and said, "It's a pleasure to meet you." He didn't want to let this opportunity slip away for any reason. In an apartment, Oh Yeonju was sitting in front of the living room coffee table. On the table were some snacks. She lowered her head, showing a sweet smile as she asked the little boy on her lap, "Siwoo, is it tasty?" The boy nodded after eating, replying, "It's tasty." The little one looked at his mother, asking if it was someone's birthday. Hearing her deny it, Siwoo looked at the seaweed soup and wanted to know why she had prepared it. Kissing her son's cheek, Oh Yeonju whispered, making him celebrate, "I made it because you like it." The door to the apartment Yeonju was in suddenly opened. Upon seeing Jae-hyun, the boy celebrated. "It's the wizard uncle." Yeonju asked the protagonist how it had been with the new residents. Thinking about them, Jae-hyun stated that he had lodged them and given them some food. Then he scratched the back of his neck, apologizing to Yeonju for her not being able to leave her home. However, Yeonju didn't mind, because for her, being with her son was the most important thing. She couldn't help but show how happy she was to be reunited with Siwoo after so long. Yeonju's loyalty to Jae-hyun grew and reached 100 points, increasing her capacity as a vassal. Even without the system notification, Jae-hyun could perceive what she felt through her expressions and attitudes. An anime was playing on the television. A metal dinosaur opened a hatch to launch a great attack. Hugging his mother, Siwoo was having fun, while Jae-hyun watched them, but seeing the scene of mother and son also made him feel down. He couldn't help but think about what his own family might be doing, if they were eating well, if they were injured, or if anything was wrong. Amidst Jae-hyun's thoughts, Kami started to squawk. The little crow approached Siwoo to play. Oh, Yeonju was enjoying the day with her son, as she had worked hard to earn that moment. Meanwhile, Jae-hyun was awaiting news from the rat that Yejin had sent to his parents' house. Once the rat arrived there, he should be able to deliver the necessary supplies to the family. Because of this, for the rest of the day, Jae-hyun just wanted to watch the brilliant moment of Oh Yeonju's dream realization. As soon as night arrived, Jae-hyun told Yeonju that she could sleep in the main bed with Siwoo. Surprised, she claimed they could sleep on the floor, but Jae-hyun insisted that they rest comfortably. As if it were an order, he had to demand it. She bowed, making her son do the same as they thanked him. While being carried by his mother, Siwoo waved, saying goodnight to the wizard uncle. Jae-hyun smiled, seeing them happy. That night, the lullaby Yeonju sang to Siwoo could be heard throughout the house. Jae-hyun lay on the living room sofa listening to it. The song echoed softly. Jae-hyun thought he was too old for lullabies, but for some reason, he kept listening until his eyes began to close. The next day passed casually. Jae-hyun and Kami ate, or were forced to eat, with Siwoo, just as Jae-hyun watched the cartoons the little boy liked. Since Siwoo kept chasing Kami, who was trying to sunbathe, the crow ended up getting annoyed. But in the end, Jae-hyun, Siwoo, and Yeonju took a nap together and played with the toys Jae-hyun had bought from the shop. And just like that, the time flew by without waiting a single second longer. Jae-hyun became downcast, and even Kami felt melancholic. That had been just one day, the maximum amount of time Jae-hyun could gift to the mother and son. Siwoo seemed confused and asked his mother, who was hugging him, why she was crying. Even with tears streaming down her face, Yeonju denied, "I'm not crying." The little one touched his mother's cheeks with sadness, confirming, "You are crying." Sad, Siwoo asked her not to cry. However, Yeonju was afraid, terrified of a world without him. Siwoo hugged her back, reassuring her, "Mom, I'm right here." Hearing Siwoo's warm voice like sunlight trying to comfort her, Yeonju couldn't hold back. Like a waterfall, she poured rivers of tears. Still, the young boy pulled away from her, stating, "Mom, I will always stay by your side, you know that, right?" As Yeonju's tears blurred her eyes, Siwoo walked toward the sunlight on the balcony, even though she still had so many things she wanted to do with him. Becoming more and more illusory, Siwoo smiled at his mother, but tears streamed from his own eyes as he said, "I love you, Mom." Thus, an inevitable farewell occurred. Yeonju cried desperately, but biting her lips, she managed to momentarily compose herself to smile toward her son. "Siwoo, Mommy loves you very much too, my dear son." Smiles overcame the tears, and the farewell was made once again, as under the rays of light, little Siwoo was carried away by the wind. Oh Yeonju remained crying, kneeling on the floor until the last warm trace of Siwoo disappeared. Hope was a flower that only bloomed in the depths of despair. Those who managed to reach it were always those surrounded by suffering. Faced with something so cruel, Jae-hyun extended his hand to Yeonju. "Don't be discouraged. This won't be the last time." He breathed hope into her once again. Looking at Jae-hyun, Yeonju stammered, asking if he was telling the truth. Helping her up, Jae-hyun declared, "If the chance exists, I will always make it happen." With such temptation heard, Yeonju's confidence as well as her loyalty reached 100 points, causing Jae-hyun to acquire ancient vitality. Different from the hope in Jae-hyun's house, fury dominated Seongyeob. The supply of spears that he and the twins possessed had been taken from them. In a rage, he fumed. He asked the twins if the same had happened to them, and they confirmed it. When they woke up, everything had disappeared. One of the twins revealed that he had found other people who went through the same thing, and they all had something in common. None of them had answered the call to go to the main gate to fight the monster. And to make matters worse, those who went returned perfectly fine. Seeing one of the twins show regret, a dark look appeared on Seongyeob's face. He quickly grabbed him, questioning, "Are you blaming me?" Furious, Seongyeob reminded the twins that they themselves had agreed to hide. The grabbed twin quickly apologized until Seongyeob let him go. He was afraid they would be expelled, as this had happened to them before. According to rumors, a man had done something bad and was instantly expelled. However, that same man was found lifeless a few blocks away. After the subjugation of the giant, survivors began to gather in the apartment complex, and now Seongyeob realized there were many people. If he went against someone, he would be the next one to be expelled. He furiously gritted his teeth, especially because Baek Seungmin had gone to the gate and even received a weapon. Baek Seungyeob probably hadn't noticed yet, but everything he had gone through so far was only the beginning. Jae-hyun, who was observing him, wondered if Seungyeob knew what kind of treatment he would receive from the other survivor groups after what he did. At that very moment, a quest appeared. Hunt 20 goblins in 24 hours. Jae-hyun would make them learn what kind of responsibility they should carry, because as a penalty for failure, they would receive 1 minute of intense pain. After being alone, Jae-hyun discovered ancient vitality. This was the rank A skill that Oh Yeonju possessed, which drastically increased regeneration. Jae-hyun still couldn't believe he had obtained such a reward because Yeonju's trust reached 100 points. However, he didn't believe the skill would be that useful since he didn't engage in combat. Since he barely left the house, the chances of getting injured were low. Even so, gaining a skill as a reward for someone's trust reaching 100 points was remarkable. Jae-hyun knew that Moon Byung-ho's trust would reach 100 points soon. Obtaining the skill that allowed him to move to locations he could see seemed to make it possible to combine it with the absolute eyes to teleport to an advanced base, at least in theory, with enough mental strength. Knowing this, Jae-hyun noted that he needed to increase his mental strength. Thus, instead of increasing skill proficiency, he decided to choose mental strength increase as the reward for missions. Once her feelings stabilized, Yeonju approached Jae-hyun, asking him to let her go. Yeonju personally wanted to rescue his family. She knew the operation should have started the day before, but it had been delayed because of her. Oh Yeonju was very grateful for the valuable time he gave her, and that was why she wanted to return the favor. Jae-hyun heard exactly what was on his mind from Yeonju's mouth. Wondering if he had shown too much impatience, he ended up feeling embarrassed, though grateful. Reassuring him, Yeonju stated that she would feel the same way if she were in his shoes. Smiling, she said with authority, "Everyone values their own families above all else. That's why I understand the value of the day you gave me, Jae-hyun." Perhaps because she had been able to see Siwoo, despite the imperfections. Yeonju's eyes no longer showed a burning fury, but confidence. Jae-hyun thanked her for understanding him and asked her to go to the apartment where Dongjian's group was, as he would meet them soon. There was a reason for not sending someone directly to Seomyeon Station. The giant had damaged the path to the station. Not only the train tracks, but practically the entire underground area had been destroyed. This necessitated a new route. In the end, Yejin had been diligently using her rats since the day before to find a safe path. Accompanying her, Jae-hyun used the absolute eyes. Soon, Jae-hyun noticed something about the condition of the rats. There was a giant tamed rat, level 7. Jae-hyun realized that the rats had evolved. This made him wonder if it was thanks to the skill Yejin had obtained when she became a vassal. However, he also wondered what was chasing the giant rats. Frighteningly, zombies appeared behind the rat, chasing it. Jae-hyun was surprised to see such monsters, which the rat was trying to avoid at all costs. It was then that the rat stopped, as the zombies blocked its escape route. The giant rat was surrounded on all sides and attacked. However, not wanting to waste a rat in that manner, Jae-hyun decided to use a gas explosion to sweep away all the monsters. The rat, however, proved obstinate and ran straight through the zombies. It managed to dodge the attacks like a circus rat, showing acrobatics to advance past the enemies. With a look of superiority, the rat showed what it was capable of. Thus, the rat hastily climbed the stairs toward the station exit. As soon as it saw the daylight, it also encountered the teeth of a monster. That thing, which looked like a shark, saw the prey jump before its eyes. Shock appeared on both the rat's face and Jae-hyun's. The land shark opened its large mouth, attacking the rat. Thus, Jaehyun saw the rat eliminated firsthand. Furious, Jaehyun wondered what this land shark was. Furthermore, he noticed the familiarity of the place, as that was Nampo Station. The station was just a few kilometers from his parents' house. The chances were extremely high that such monsters were wandering the neighborhood. That was why Jaehyun remembered that he needed to hurry. In a corridor, Dabin was organizing some boxes. She stopped to rest until someone called her. Team Leader Kim! She realized that the person calling her was Jaehyun, who praised her hard work. Smiling, she stated that it wasn't that hard since she was being paid for it, and asked if he needed anything. Jaehyun seemed hesitant, which brought curiosity to Dabin, who soon began to tremble, knowing that something big was about to happen. Trying to ask without being rude, Jaehyun revealed, "I was thinking of borrowing Hyerin for some time." Shocked, she asked if he was serious, as she felt she would be in trouble doing everything alone in the meantime. With a forced smile, Jaehyun stated that he would be counting on her for the next 2 days. Dabin seemed irritated and demanded, "Jaehyun, you're going to pay me overtime for this, right?" The protagonist smiled at her attitude and announced, "I'll double your salary." Tasting the money, Dabin's eyes turned into dollar signs. A thick gas was released and stored in an inventory. The one responsible for releasing it was Hyerin herself. Some time ago, Jaehyun had gathered everyone. Thus, he officially started the meeting for the operation. As everyone knows, due to the giant's appearance, passing through the station has become difficult. But it would be a shame to give up on using the subway. Yejin then took over the meeting under Haehyun's command. She looked at a map and cited some stations that were intact. There were no monsters in them, so they could pass freely. Placing the paper on the table, she showed the safe route to Byomnegol Station. Looking at the hand-drawn map, the group paused for a moment, and Deoksu broke the silence. He smiled falsely, praising, "Yejin, you're very good at drawing maps." Jaehyun sensed the sarcasm but let Yejin continue. She then pointed to an area where they needed to be careful, a large avenue. Orcs were active in the market zone, and their estimated number was around 500. Dongjin asked if they would need to face them, but Yejin denied it, reminding them, "Our goal is to enter the station and use its subway line." She reassured them, stating that she had used the rats to scout the way, and there were no orcs on the route, only a few smaller monsters. Before the subjugation operation, Jaehyun had spent a lot of money to evolve Dongjin's group as much as possible. Now, everyone was already at level 30. Among them, only Mr. Choi, Hyungjun, and Yu Hyerin had not reached that milestone. At this point, Jaehyun thought that goblins were no longer a threat to the group. Yejin continued, stating that by entering the subway route, they would reach Choryang Station without a problem. The trouble would only begin when they reached Busan. Worried, Deoksu asked if there was a giant there, but she reassured him. Yejin stated that the problem was the route. Between Choryang and Busan, there was a horde of zombies. Unless they possessed a skill capable of sweeping monsters in a confined space, taking that route would be impossible. It was at that moment that everyone turned to Hyerin, who flinched. The young woman became apprehensive but soon bit her lip and recovered, stating, "Yejin, I think my skill can be useful." In the inventory, 100 kilograms of poisonous mist were stored. Hyerin was relieved when she finished. Thus, Jaehyun and Yejin returned to meet her, and the protagonist praised her for the good work. Jaehyun also asked if she felt well. Hyerin claimed to be perfectly fine. She had only felt exhausted at first, but her strength quickly returned. Yu Hyerin seemed so worn out that Jaehyun secretly accessed the vassal management window while evolving her. The cost was high, but possessing billions, it wasn't impressive. Worried, Hyerin asked if it would be okay if she didn't go personally. The protagonist reassured her, stating that she could stay at home producing the poisonous mist. As soon as all the preparations were complete, Jaehyun used the absolute eyes once more, initiating the operation. Countless zombies inhabited the darkness of the tunnels. It was on the train tracks that something appeared before them. A level 3 tamed rat scurried in a hurry. The animal caught the attention of the zombies, who advanced. At the same instant, Jaehyun used the option to open the inventory. The poisonous mist was released by the rat, which ran among the zombies. Soon the monsters began to stop moving, as the mist produced by Hyerin had paralyzing effects. The zombies no longer acted as before. As soon as they inhaled it, their movements became slow, and controlling their bodies became more difficult. The mist paralyzed the diaphragm, causing suffocation. However, they were still dealing with zombies. The monsters were no longer alive, so breathing wasn't a problem for them. That's why Jaehyun had a plan, which he asked Yejin to start. With the Queen of Rats' command, a horde of rats appeared. The rodents charged against the zombies, who couldn't react. Thus, the small beings from the sewers feasted. One after another, notifications that zombies had been eliminated appeared. However, Yejin suddenly called Jaehyun as she felt something was wrong with the rats. The rats began to squeal with pure hatred. The animals' eyes turned red. They had undergone mutation and transformed into tamed giant zombie rats. Jaehyun, however, discovered something beforehand thanks to this. Touching the zombies would turn them into zombies too. He was relieved he hadn't sent Oh Yeonju, who could have been infected if she bit or attacked the zombies with claws. Jaehyun asked if the mutated rats still followed orders. Yejin responded affirmatively, only revealing that the zombie rats were a little more aggressive and caused fear in the normal ones. Relieved to see that everything was going well, Jaehyun believed that if they reached Jagalchi Station, he would be able to have Dongjin's group reunite with his family. It was at this moment that a notification appeared of someone wanting to enter the domain area. Jaehyun was surprised, as it was a group of 157 people. He offered citizenship to the group. This caused the population to reach 3,000 people, and the economic activity subsidy skill was unlocked. Jaehyun shifted from surprise to happiness, as what he saw seemed really good. The economic activity subsidy assigned titles to citizens and paid them subsidies. These were withdrawn from the money in the reclusion wallet. Jaehyun figured that giving titles to Kim Dabin and the public facilities management team would be ideal. The promised weekly salary was 700,000 won, which matched perfectly with the 100,000 daily for the staff. Now there was no need to reduce rates when distributing money. Given the circumstances, Jaehyun realized he would need to expand the number of people working in public facilities management. For the public facilities management team, the money given to the citizens seemed practically free. The amount paid was not low. If an entire staff of 300 people received 100,000 per day, he would be paying 30 million daily. It was possible to fill countless vacancies, totaling a daily salary of 50 million, which excited Jaehyun. He could collect taxes and still get some of the money back by selling products. In addition to the public facilities management team, there were infrastructure, maintenance, cleaning, and security positions. These were the sectors Jaehyun could think of at the moment. He imagined that security should be mainly assigned to those who had gathered at the main gate to fight the giant. Thus, he began to distribute the positions. Kim Dabin was named general manager. Jaehyun tried to remember who the people Dabin had accepted onto the management team were: Mr. Choi, Yoo Hyerin, and one more person. Just as Jaehyun expected, Dabin's loyalty reached 100 points, making her a vassal immediately. He also remembered that a specialty should be awakened at this time. Going to the system, he checked what Dabin's skill was. Closing the notifications and going to the next room, Jaehyun found Hyerin napping, almost drooling on her clothes. He was surprised and saw Yejin laughing maliciously while pointing at the girl. Should I wake her up? Since Hyerin had fulfilled her duties, Jaehyun planned to let her rest. She had pretended to be fine, but she had been through a lot. She had worked to the point of exhaustion. Since Hyerin deserved a reward, the protagonist used the giant invisible hand to lift her without her noticing. After placing her in bed, Jaehyun also covered her up. Seeing that Hyerin didn't wake up, Yejin figured she was very tired. Joining Yejin, the protagonist asked if she was okay. Yejin was surprised by the question. "I didn't do anything that tired me out. I'm completely fine." Reassuring him, she revealed that they were entering Nampo Station at that very moment. As soon as she smiled, stating that Jaehyun could count on her, the young woman's expression turned gloomy. Jaehyun hastily asked what had happened. Looking at her own hands, Yejin couldn't believe it. "The connection isn't working." Desperate, Jaehyun asked what had happened. Yejin asked him to wait a second and tried to re-establish the connection. She felt that the distance was too far. Jaehyun was confused, as her skill was working until earlier. Yejin figured that moving while the connection was active might push it a little further, but the range was limited near the central station. Biting his lips, Jaehyun wondered why, of all times, the problem had happened now. He planned to use Seo Yejin's rats to check on his parents' house after passing through Jagalchi Station, but now that wouldn't be possible. Clenching his fist, he made a selfish request. "Yejin, can you re-establish the connection from the central station somehow?" The young woman nodded, trying once more. There, the zombie rats would run hastily. Jaehyun wanted to exhaust every possible method, and worriedly, he pleaded that everyone be safe. Dongjin's team was 2 stations away from the central station, trying to establish connection with the rats. At Choryang Station, they got off. The group looked around, but all they saw was destruction. Impressed, Gayoung woke up Kim Jeon, asking him to scout the area. Kim Jeon sent his crow to fly over the location. Seeing through the animal's eyes, he stated that there didn't seem to be any monsters nearby. Deoksu was relieved because, thanks to the great chaos caused by the giant, they could advance easily. Kim Jeon agreed and, analyzing the situation in the area, figured that no one in their right mind would try to go there. With night approaching, Kim Da-jung asked if they would be okay, and suggested they find a safe place to spend the night. Gayoung reassured her, stating that given the goblins' behavior, it was even safer to travel at night, as they hide until dawn. Dongjin stopped to think for a moment and decided that they would continue moving, as he knew that if things got dangerous, Jaehyun would summon them back. attack. At that moment, one of Yejin's rats approached the group. Everyone noticed and decided to follow it. The group walked through an area near the station that was flooded. Busan Station looked like a complete lake to them. They wondered if the destruction had been caused by the giant. Gayung, however, noticed that the buildings had fallen and formed a hole. In the lake, something moved, breaking the water's surface. Kim Jian was the first to notice something strange and stopped walking. Everyone asked what had happened, and the young man with glasses commented that he had heard something. Kim Jian pointed to a wall in the middle of the lake. There was a silhouette. "There's someone there." Upon seeing long hair, the group thought it was a woman, but soon noticed the tail and gills on her body. As soon as they realized it was a mermaid, a shrill sound hit them. They quickly covered their ears as the mermaid began to sing. A dark energy began to envelop all the young people who heard the siren's song. Before they realized it, their bodies started moving on their own. Against their will, Kang Deok-soo and Oh Yeonju jumped into the water. The others became extremely worried when they saw the pair jump. They sank as if they didn't know how to swim. Yeonju looked to the side and saw Deok-soo sinking. She finally recovered and swam toward him. However, several mermaid hands emerged, grabbing her legs. Yeonju felt something pulling her. All the mermaids clung to her, trying to drag her down. Dongjin was about to go crazy as well. Kim Da-jung moved using magic. Activating her magic armor, she extended the effect to her companions. The group was impressed, as they could now hear normally. Da-jung fell to her knees, hastily pleading, "We need to save Deok-soo and Yeonju." Looking at the river, she was startled. A great monster was lurking. The group was even more surprised when bipedal monsters, which weren't mermaids, came out of the water. The fishmen stared at the group and then dove in, swimming toward them. Dongjin quickly grabbed a spear. "Prepare for battle! They're coming!" Waves surged, and from the middle of them, the monsters leaped out of the water. Dongjin prepared the spear and brandished it toward the beast attacking him. An arrow, however, hit the advancing monster, ending the threat. But countless other monsters also emerged from the water. Gayung couldn't see an end to the appearance of the new creatures. Soon, the fishmen, armed with tridents, surrounded the group. Dongjian nervously gritted his teeth as they had no time to lose. He knew they needed to hurry to save Yeonju and Deok-soo. Suddenly, two monsters were thrown out of the water, catching the attention of the others. Holding Deok-soo, a large bear jumped out of the water. Panting, Yeonju, transformed into a bear, had saved Deok-soo. Deok-soo spat out a large amount of water, relieved that he thought he would drown. The group was extremely excited to see their friend saved. Deok-soo thanked Yeonju, who smiled in her bear form. "It's okay. You've helped me many times." One of the monsters shouted angrily as it saw its prey escape. They quickly returned to the attack. Deok-soo put on his armor, and with Yeonju transformed into a bear, they were ready to fight. He took out his fury by brandishing the halberd, eliminating the monsters one after another. The sea monsters also charged against the bear. However, the bear's heavy paw stopped them, throwing them away with overwhelming force. A monster hit a wooden post which cracked and toppled. On it, there was another being, Deok-soo. Seeing the post fall, shouted to warn everyone. With an explosion, the post fell to the ground. Byung-ho ran to check if Dongjian was okay, but he didn't understand what had happened. Deok-soo and Da-jung, however, saw what was previously on the post. There, tied up, was a goblin. Quickly, Kim Jan looked up. "Guys, look!" Everyone looked at the posts in the vicinity and discovered goblins tied up on all of them. The group, who had been keeping their eyes on the ground until then, realized that the mermaids didn't care if the enemy was a monster or a human. They hunted and displayed everyone. Gayung dropped her bow and, stammering, shouted upon seeing a silhouette. "Dad!" The young woman became desperate, but she didn't have time to stay that way. The monsters once again charged toward them. Dongjeon noticed the monster's attack on Gayung, but she was too far away for him to help her.